How do you do? The Box Office Pulp board feels it would be a little unkind to present this podcast without just a word of friendly warning. We're about to unfold a cinematic commentary track, made by a group of men who sought to create a podcast after their own ravings, without reckoning upon God. It is one of the strangest tales ever told. It deals with three great mysteries of the internet: analysis, observation, and deconstruction. I think it will thrill you. It may shock you. It might even horrify you. So if any of you feel you'd not care to subject your nerves to such a strain, now's your chance to... well, we've warned you. Now, to pause and refresh. For your convenience, we have an attractive refreshment stand in the lobby, with buttered popcorn, golden good and hot from the popper, your favorite candies, wholesome and rich, plus delicious Dr. Pepper, so bright and bracing with a tang and tingle unmatched by any other beverage. Enjoy an ice-cold Dr. Pepper at our beverage stand right now, and then return to fully appreciate this bop and a movie commentary track. Enjoy.
Well, dreams, they feel real while we're in them, right? It's only when we wake up that we realize something was actually strange.
Boy, those boogans are getting loud.
Oh, I was going to say, we can never be silent during this commentary. That's a horrible noise.
This is nothing. They're much quieter than they have been.
Like, I went fucking telltale heart for a second there. I was just sitting in silence. Oh, they're in my brain.
Yes. Soon we shall all be boogans. Some people actually find this relaxing. Like, this is, you know, the ambient sound tape they would buy. And when I find those people, if I find those people, I'm going to have to end them.
I don't think anybody wants frog sounds.
I bet there are some people out there that probably really get into frog sounds.
Like sexually? Like it's chili dog time?
No, like a sleep tape.
Oh, yeah, that's a thing.
So are we going to have to, like, do a preamble on this that says that the frog sounds are just Cody's personal wake-up music?
That's his totem.
Okay, I just went online, typed sleep tape frog sounds, and the first response was 2 hours of rain, stream, crickets, frogs, and nature sounds. It's just a 2-hour YouTube video of basically what you're hearing outside.
And this angers you personally.
Yes. Like, oh, it's so nice. Oh, comments, hi, fell asleep, woke up, cool, might listen again? ? Thanks. That was a fucking journey. I like how this guy's excited, like, I fell asleep, but then I woke up, cool. That's all one sentence. Like, there's commas in between the items, but it's a sentence.
This plays me how the episode opens.
There. This is the white noise generator on my phone that I use when I sleep sometimes. Here's a weird thing that's on it.
The Predator?
This is a cat purring, but yeah, it sounds like the Predator.
Why does... Okay, first of all, that sounds like no cat I've ever heard in my life. Second of all, that sounds to me like the flapping of wings off of a giant insect.
That too. It doesn't
I
sound
think
like
that's the
anything
sound
good.
of the brundlefly.
Does this soothe you, Cody?
No.
Can we just have that going the entire time?
Hold on. Here we go.
You're going to drive Cody insane.
Hold on, I can make this even better. Hold on.
No.
I'm gonna drive Cody to some sort of murder here in a second. Let's like click on 2 of these.
That's not relaxing in any way. It's just irritating.
Like, if you were raised by frogs, you'd be very relaxed right now.
Okay, now I'm gonna add a third one that's a little weird. That's a Tibet singing bowl.
Just why not?
It looks like you're being visited by the god of frogs.
Here's a weird one.
A bong?
Sounds like one of those Japanese, like, I don't know what they're called, but, you know, a water slide basically fills up, tips over, drops the water, except for this one's creaky.
This is called boat swaying in water.
Oh, sounds dumb.
It's pretty dumb. Most of these are very dumb.
Okay.
You just listen to television static.
I do have television static on here.
For some reason, this just makes me think back to Scooby-Doo, and what if they had guest directors come in? I'm trying to connect all the conversations we've had so far into one
Let's
idea.
start.
So there's
Let's start,
David
guys.
Lynch directing a Scooby-Doo episode, and just the horrible static and weird things that are happening.
I'm surprised that never happened.
There's a weird, like the mysteries they actually find a body wrapped in plastic instead of like gold at the bottom of a river.
Let's start.
Let's start. Okay. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Box Office Pulp, the podcast for movies, madness, and moxie. I'm your host, Cody, and today we're running a commentary on one of the Bob Cruise's favorite films, Christopher Nolan's Inception.
Right, the favorite film of the Bop Cruise?
I thought he said that too.
The Bob Cruise.
I like the idea of, can we sell tickets to the Bob Cruise? Everybody,
The Bob
all
Cruise.
of our fans
The
get to go on a
Bop
cruise with us.
Cruise.
Coming to take you away.
It's like
Anyways.
when WCW back in the 90s had a wrestling cruise, where you would just go on a cruise with a bunch of coked up wrestlers in the middle of the sea.
Well, with
In international waters.
this theoretical, scenario, would we all go on a cruise with a bunch of people with dream machines?
I believe in this case we would be the Dream Machine. Also, this is why I don't write material anymore for our openings.
Did you write material for the opening, Cody?
I do have an opening. In fact, let's jump into that.
Bop in a movie, everybody.
Bop in a movie. Back on track. Let's start off with a fun fact. If you take the first letters of the main characters' names from this movie, Dom, Robert, Eames, Arthur, Sal, and Sato, they spell dreams. And then if you add several of the other characters, Peter, Ariadne, and Yusuf, the whole makes dreams pay. Now, if you take the letters of the co-hosts for this podcast, Mike, James, and MB, and you rearrange those letters, do you happen to know what that spells?
Jam.
Close. You actually can get several anagrams. My two favorite are Mask Jib M Me, and the other one is Jam B Me Skim.
That sounds like the name of a band.
It could be the Bop Band.
This sounds like something from Twin Peaks. Jamady Bim.
Both of these are completely meaningless. Anyways, welcome to the show, everyone.
What's the opening?
That was the opening. That was my cold open. That was my written material. I'll be here all week.
Did you not even add your name into that?
No, I introduced myself in the beginning, though, so I can be exempt.
He's like the Spectre. He's impassive. He just watches us from above. He doesn't mix up his name in any anagram games.
I witness. I decode. I do not participate.
Bop in a movie.
Bop in a movie.
Like, you
Theoretically,
decode?
this
Is that why you're the codester?
Oh, it's all coming together. Unraveling
Also-
this ball of yarn.
Before we get any further, we need to address something which is very present. That.
My crippling lack of self-worth.
No, listen, listeners, listen to that. That is what you're going to have to deal with the entirety of this commentary because we can't get them to stop.
I'll maybe be able to fix a little bit of it.
Well, I have to think of this as our version of that Edith Piaf song in Inception. Like, we need the sound of the boogans to wake us all up, so we don't just spend our entire lives in this Box Office Pulp commentary.
We need them to
Alternatively-
remind us that we are not dreaming.
My interpretation is these are the sleep tracks. These bookends are gonna whisk you away to the land of Nod, where you can dream about Inception while we talk about Inception. Just please keep playing it so our hit counters go up.
I don't even know what to say about this intro anymore.
Fantastic. Which
Bop
means
in a
we
move.
have to move into actually doing the commentary.
I do want to say, I want to welcome everybody to our April commentary.
So this is coming out in June?
I will be going backwards in time
Thank
to
goodness.
post this.
Impressive.
Because all bopping movies are cursed.
It's true.
Jam B Me Skim. That
Jam
catchphrase is gonna-
and indeed.
That catchphrase is gonna catch on.
It's gonna end up meaning something like racist, isn't it?
Oh god, I've never looked this up online.
Oh,
This movie is 5 hours long, so we should probably...
I'm sorry, I have to find out if I'm accidentally a racist.
Cody has to do this several times a week.
So, in case you've never listened to one of our commentaries before, they're normally this dumb. But what we're going to do is play the movie, hopefully all at the same time, and we'll comment on the movie as it plays. So, if you're sitting at home, feel free to join in with us, cue up the movie Inception. We're all right now at all zeros, blank screens, and we're going to have a countdown from 3 before we hit the play button and let this thing rip. Everyone got that? Because I'm not saying it again. You can rewind.
Got it, Coach.
Put me in, Coach.
All right. James, you want to have the honor of counting us down?
Oh, it's been so long.
Woo.
1, 2, 3.
And it starts already. Cody's just going to do that for the entire commentary.
I don't have anything to say other than annoying brah noises. And frogs. I bring the frogs.
When we originally sat down to record this, that was going to be your only contribution. You were just going to... Because you were recording this on a night where you had the flu or something. So you were just going to sleep the entire time, occasionally waking up to go... Bong, and then passing back out.
We are professionals.
Integrity. If there's one word I can use to describe Box Office Pulp, it's integrity.
I always like how this movie is entirely based on Nolan's production company logo.
So
That's actually what they're inside the entire time.
When did Nolan actually make Syncope? Was this like something he started off very early in his career, or was this something like after Batman he had this to his name?
He had been working on this for, since the beginning.
Okay, because I know, Inception, he had the idea for that something like 10 years before it was made, and he just never really thought it was the right time to make it.
Look, we all know that Inception began the day Christopher Nolan saw Paprika.
I thought you were going to say secretly killed his wife.
That too.
Shh.
Do you want him to kill you in the next movie? We don't talk about it.
God damn, Sato is so decadent.
I love Christopher Nolan's weird fixation with Fu Manchu strongholds.
Containing Ken Watanabe.
An increasingly ridiculous facial hair.
In his mind, every Japanese house holds one Ken Watanabe.
It's like a throw rug.
He goes to Tokyo and he's just like, how many are there?
Ken, there's Kens all around me.
Ken, where are you? I will find you.
I never noticed one of the first good shots of Leo is just showing the wedding ring.
So where does everyone stand? I mean, might as well just jump right into it, on the idea that the wedding ring is actually Cobb's totem. Because in this shot, we went from the ring right to his supposed totem up the top.
Well, I mean, there's plenty of evidence in the film that doesn't really, it's not, I wouldn't even say that's really a theory, it's definitely a piece of symbolism that's in the film. It does appear and disappear several times. He does go out of his way to hide his hand on occasion as well during certain segments.
It seems like it'd be odd for a totem, though, because it's not something like a loaded die where you can test it.
I wouldn't even really say it's a totem. It's just a projection of Cobb's mind.
Also, it's just something that I feel like, to kind of get into the deep characterization of it, I feel like Cobb cannot exactly control the fact, like Mike was saying, the projection of it on him, but if he sees that, he knows he's dreaming because he got rid of the ring in reality. Like, I like to think I like to think that the movie actually sets up, like, whenever he's in his dream, he's still married because Mal is there.
That's one way of looking at it.
We've actually solved the movie in the first 2 minutes, so everyone can just go home.
Good night, everyone.
If you're wondering about the top falling over, don't worry. We figured this out for you.
I would argue that the wedding ring's not Cobb's totem, but it's more of the audience's totem. That's something to latch onto if they wanted to look and, try to do that with the film and look into stuff.
Yeah.
It's very strategically placed, so.
But like a lot of things in the movie, the thing that makes it interesting is that it could, be like Mike was saying, something for the audience to latch onto. It could also just be misdirection. And we'll see that at many points throughout the movie. Things that can be taken as a yardstick for figuring out, what world we're in or what exactly is going on the screen, or could just be a coincidence, or could just be intentional misdirection.
I don't know if there's a lot of coincidences in the film, but you have to. It's like Cobb is an unreliable narrator. Like, a big unreliable narrator. The movie calls out the fact he's an unreliable narrator.
He's kind of, in a weird way, the villain of the film because his mind is kind of structuring everything.
Yeah.
He is also a terrible boss to his employees. Like, oh, by the way, if you fuck up this job and you die, you're going to be stuck in here for the next eternity and you'll probably go insane.
If any of you are real.
Well, that kind of goes into the larger theory that I think a lot of people have and that a lot of people have, spoken at length about, which is the idea that the entire movie is an allegory for filmmaking itself, which, if what you were describing were accurate, it would basically be the idea of movie jail. Like, if you mess up, you're never going to work in this town again.
And yeah, people like M. Night Shyamalan who live in the dream forever.
That's actually what I was getting at, though, because, Nolan said that, as far as building the idea of a heist, the only thing he was really familiar with was how film production works. So he structured the idea of the film around the film crew. So Cobb, in this instance, is the director. Cobb is an unreliable narrator, and he's in the director role, but the ultimate unreliable narrator of the film is Nolan.
Yeah.
Like, he's having a ball screwing with the audience and making sure you're completely out of place constantly and giving you wrong ideas. And
it's also a great misdirect on his part, pointing out the fact he murdered his wife, so now we don't suspect him in reality. Because, we wouldn't put that in a movie. It's too obvious.
Well, the movie itself is just all about subjectivity, like Mike was saying. Nolan almost immediately outs himself as an unreliable filmmaker. And this is something I see a lot of people using to make a case for whether certain scenes are dreams or not, or whether or not the entire movie is a dream, is that in the scenes that are identified as dreams, Nolan goes out of his way to use dream logic in his editing. Not using a lack of establishing shots, having characters just appear and reappear in strange scenes. And there's a scene going up later where Cobb is in Mubasa and Sato just appears out of nowhere suddenly to save him with a flimsy excuse as to why he's there.
Mm-hmm. But of course, they actually call that out later in the film, too, like how unlikely most of these events are, which is kind of a clever fold, because you can throw it right in the audience's face to make it even more shaky.
But, the way I look at that is, a lot of those clues aren't coming from in-universe. They come from an external knowledge of Nolan as a filmmaker. And Nolan is choosing to tell the story however he damn well pleases. He doesn't have to follow his own rules. He's the god. So, Sato showing up to save Cobb could be a sign that he's in a dream. Or it could be lazy writing. Or it could be misdirection. And the beautiful thing is, each interpretation is equally valid.
Well, it's because the dream scenario is infinitely malleable. It is kind of the ultimate scapegoat for being able to write a lot of that off and still keep it within narrative. If you eschew in a dream, you don't really eschew story logic because any story logic can just be attributed to, well, that was just a dream and it was never real.
And like Cobb ends up calling out to Fisher, like, you know, if you actually look around, there's a lot of strange things going on, but nobody ever notices things are strange in a dream. But whenever we're in reality, there are things to pick up on that are a little bit strange. Just a tiny bit strange, like in the background, or like Maul when she jumps to her death. If you actually kind of look at that scene, it's very strange.
Yeah, the placement of the characters doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
No, it's very intentionally done that way.
And again, you could once again say that, okay, maybe that's bullshit. Like, maybe this is a thing that never happened. Maybe we're just seeing Cobb's version of things where it's structured in a more visually pleasing way.
Well, it also plays on the idea of memory playing into dream, because memories can often be reinterpreted by ourselves, and our dreams can be extrapolated versions of memories. So memories could honestly be like a complete 180 if they're if they're kind of mangled enough.
I just want to go back to like the very beginning, like the very first shots of the film, like where the movie start, like that's just the structure of the beginning, where it kind of starts at the end and goes backwards. I was thinking it's kind of, because the entire film's structured a lot like a dream and how Cobb describes how dreams work. But it's interesting how it begins whenever you're trying to remember a dream you woke up from. Usually the first thing you remember is the very end of the dream. And then you kind of work backwards, starting kind of from the middle, and then try to get back to the end of the dream. So it's interesting to me that it starts in that kind of structured point where it starts at the end and then you shoot backwards.
I thought the choice for how Nolan kind of presents the dream aspects for the film were interesting because all the points you made, obviously, but there's really two ways you can take dreams in movies. You can really go over the top. They had the budget to do whatever they wanted for an over-the-top dreamscape, and they could have gone for the fantastic elements as much as they wanted to and really made it in your face and pushed a lot of the images. Or they could have gone Nolan's route where it's more grounded and it's kind of insidious. You notice strange things that don't really add up, but it might take a couple of viewings to really get a good grasp on what some of those are. And obviously that supports the feeling of being in a dream more so than the possibility of dreams, which really is a huge benefit for the movie. I give Nolan a lot of shit for maybe going too grounded in his films when he has a chance to really blow things off their hinges. But in this case, it makes a lot of sense that he's not trying to go over the top.
Well, he goes just over the top enough to where you start to question reality itself, which is something he's kind of known for with the Batman movies and known for with like Memento and stuff. Like, nothing in there is really over the top. Well, apart from Rises, of course, but
well, even in the other Batman movies, like when they get to the steam machine, that really feels out of place with the rest of the movie, and it didn't sit well with a lot of people. Whereas in this film, you know, you have the chance, you could go as over the top as you wanted, and it really wouldn't feel that out of place. But he doesn't need to do those gigantic, super over the top things for the most part.
Well, the thing that I kind of wanted to get to is that the Batman movies are ultimately contract jobs for another studio's property that he still has to maintain some sort of perimeter with. This is more of him getting to play with his own perimeters and getting to move them around and shuffle them however he wants. And he chooses to do it just to his specifications. He chooses to go just a little bit up and dial it up a little bit, like with the train running through the dream later on whenever they try to extract Fisher. And what he does is that he doesn't take reality and sort of distort it in a way where it's like, okay, clearly this is all not happening, but he does it in a way that it makes you question it, makes you doubt that it's happening. But you also just can't be entirely sure.
Yeah, this is Nolan Unbound. Sorry, I just want to say that.
I feel like Nolan's Unbound. It's like his levels go to 8, not 11. 8,
That is true.
which is perfectly fine in this movie. I don't have any complaints about that.
Well, I feel like this, I mean, I've said it multiple times prior to this. I still maintain this, is that this is Nolan's masterpiece. Like,
Oh yeah, I would say so.
he's never going to, he may shock us and do something even better down the line, but as of now, he has never made a movie better than this.
I just marvel at the streak he had because, what was it? It was The Prestige, The Dark Knight, and Inception back to back to back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Well, Batman Begins, The Prestige, like, he honestly, for the most part, really never slipped up. I mean, I think I've seen all of his films. I've seen Following, I've seen Memento, I've seen,
Insomnia.
Insomnia, the Robin Williams movie, which was honestly probably the weakest of his pre-Rises movies.
Yeah,
But
and
even
I
then-
can forgive that just because it is a remake, so he's trying to hem fairly close to the source material.
And even then, I mean, it's still a decent watch. It's not something that's far from watchable. I mean, it doesn't have a lot of just problems like Rises does.
I mean, Al Pacino kills somebody and then feels bad about it and has to reveal the truth in the end. So, I mean, it's totally got the Nolan stamp.
And Hilary Swank is there to solve it all.
It'd be awesome if in this scene that top didn't stop and Leo just blew his brains out and that was never explained, and it's just very confusing for the audience.
I always like how for a second there it looks like he's watching the top to see if it pulls any shit, and if it does, he's just gonna blow it away.
That'll
Watching you.
teach it.
The top just grows like Apocalypse in the X-Men Apocalypse trailer.
To go back a little bit, remember when the movie came out, and I'm specifically referring to the opening scene where everyone's in tuxedos walking around a very fancy location, how everyone immediately jumped on the Nolan for James Bond bandwagon? Just imagine what could have been.
People jumped on that back when he did Begins. I mean, the minute he became a high-profile director who did this reboot of a classic franchise is like, okay, what else was rebooted successfully? James Bond.
Well, Nolan has detailed on several occasions he's a massive Bond fan and he was apparently in talks for Spectre at some point.
Wow.
I honestly
Can you
feel like
imagine how
Spectre would have come
bananas
out
and Nolan-
exactly the same.
Probably, actually. I mean, this movie does contain the greatest James Bond sequence in movie history.
I just can't help but imagine how bananas a Nolan Bond movie would be if he and Christopher were like in the writer's room on that. Like a movie that was Nolan from beginning to end and not just him taking somebody else's movie. So I'm curious, would he be a purist about that, or would he make a mindfuck?
Good question. Imagine that's where he just goes insane.
Oh god. There is no James Bond. He would be the one who would actually do the fan theory where there's like 20 different James Bonds.
They all come together to defeat Moonraker 2.
Tom Berenger is brought in as the American Bond.
Okay, we all laugh, but could you imagine how many people would lose their shit if there was a Bond movie that had Pierce Brosnan, Timothy Dalton, Daniel Craig, just all teaming up as the Bonds?
To defeat Sean Connery.
They just CGI in Roger Moore's voice over a better-looking CGI model.
We're getting to the
No.
point where that's possible.
No. They would have to battle George Lazenby.
Coming for revenge. He was scorned after only one mission.
He scars his face up like main Bond villain.
Trevelyan?
Blofeld.
Blofeld.
I was just thinking it'd be fantastic if you just remake GoldenEye, but crammed in a Doctor Who angle where it's like the day of the Bonds.
It's interdimensional.
It doesn't even have to be. I just want all the Bonds to show up with barely any cover and just go about their business.
Also, you guys have no idea how much this scene specifically made me want to see Ra's al Ghul become an entrepreneur in the comics. Like, he has a business. Lazarus Incorporated.
That's an interesting angle. I'm surprised they've never really run with all that much.
Oh, we were this close to that being a Vandal Savage in the 1980s.
It's true.
Seriously, the reason Lex Luthor is an evil businessman post-Crisis in DC Comics is because everyone wanted that for Vandal Savage, but they decided to give it to Luthor at the last moment.
That's always kind of been Luthor's shtick.
Don't Think About Elephants is in reference to that book that's called Don't Think About Elephants.
It's always delighted me hearing Ken Watanabe say elephants. Because he falls for the don't think about elephants trick. I don't know why that's hilarious to me.
There are certain phrases coming out of his mouth that are just amazing, like, let them fight. Will always get me really excited. I wish they would use that before every, MMA fight ever filmed. Every boxing match, every, rivalry football game. Every time two drunks at a bar start fighting each other, I wish Ken Watanabe was there to announce it to the world.
I'm sure that's an app.
I want them to do an entire cut of Captain America Civil War where they just have his character there and then build up to the airport fight.
I'm just imagining him saying it over and over, and then something happens to defuse the situation. He's sitting there like, let them fight. Then Tony Stark comes in like, no, it's fine. I have the Accords. We don't have to have problems. Oh. And Captain America's like, well, I'm not going to sign them. Let them fight. And it just keeps building and building until they actually fight, and then you just see him in the corner just shaking with joy.
They fought.
I say, I love how the main plot of this movie isn't a corporation doing a heroic thing. It's just a bullshit corporate raider thing.
It's such a small reason for anything in this movie to be happening.
It's such a weird thing, because really, if you think about it, okay, this is one business encouraging a bunch of criminals to do bad things to a guy who isn't necessarily shown as being evil, or his business being evil. So all around, we're just cheering on villainy. At the end, we're supposed to feel very cathartic when Fisher breaks up his father's business, but in reality, he's probably just throwing his career and savings away. Like, he's destroying his life, and we're like, yeah, everyone's happy now.
It's like a sci-fi Parker novel.
Like, we have no idea if Sato is a good person or runs his company in a good way.
Sato is delightful.
He's delightful, but that doesn't mean he's not evil.
He's the best movie executive ever.
So I appreciate, I don't think that's a bad thing. I actually really enjoy the fact that these guys are basically mercenaries for what is more than likely just a shitty cause. Like, if anything, they're helping another guy make a monopoly by destroying a business. So, yeah, fuck competition in labor. I wouldn't
be surprised if, Apple or Microsoft were done in similar circumstances. Let's go into the dream of Bill Gates.
There's an aspect of this movie I like that if this technology existed, it would be used for shitty, petty corporate reasons.
So this is where Michael Caine hangs out.
Well, he's currently researching Bane.
I still want to know what the presents were. That bag looks empty to me.
He got them new bags.
New bags to replace your old bags.
I want to do that to somebody so badly. I got you new gift bags. So whenever you give me a gift, it can be in something nice.
My God, it fits perfectly with Inception. Bags within bags. We have to go deeper. He opens up another bag. There's a box. He opens up the box. There's a bag.
It's a Russian nesting doll of bad gift giving.
I've always been obsessed with the idea that in this universe, Michael Caine made Marion Cotillard.
Seems very confusing. And a dream machine, apparently.
That should be the official name for it. Everyone should just call it hey, we need the dream machine. Bring it on down.
Oh, then they transform, armor forms around them. This becomes a 90s cartoon.
I mentioned it the first time we tried to record this podcast. I don't know if anyone understood me because it sounded like I was made of gravel. But I'm still sticking my headcanon that this is actually a sidequel to Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. So imagine Michael Caine's character in that movie just trying to deal with, like, Elijah Wood and all the other guys.
This is actually Tom Wilkinson's character.
But I hope if anyone listens to this, they immediately watch that movie right after this movie and have the same feelings I do.
Well, I've maintained for years that Eternal Sunshine is actually the sequel to Scott Pilgrim. So we're constructing our own universe here.
We're talking about if there is a reality. Instead, we should be like, no, there is none. Their reality is the Scott Pilgrim world. It only gets weirder the more you go up.
Scott Pilgrim, Snowpiercer, same universe.
It's all one.
By the way, Ariadne. Mike, I believe you have some things to say about this character.
I don't know what you're talking about. I don't have a thing. I don't have a goddamn thing to say.
You know what Eddas you need to invoke.
Hey, Eddas are Norse mythology.
No saving this for the Hurt cast. Cross promotion. Tink. Seriously though, if you want to listen to another fun show about mythology, Box Office Pulp is proud to be affiliated with the Pulp Podcast Network show Hercules versus the Podcast, where Mike explains the crazy-ass mythology of the world, which will eventually be coming back. Eventually.
It will. So, Ariadne, as literally everybody knows...
Yes, of course.
...is from the story of Theseus and the Minotaur.
Which you can check out on episode 2 of Hercules versus the Podcast.
Promotion!
So, Ariadne in the story... is the sister of the Minotaur, interesting enough. But,
Really?
Oh, half-sister.
She, like, quarter horse? Sorry, bull?
Horse vagina. So...
Oh,
It's weird because the Minotaur is a bull, but I digress. So, Ariadne in the story helps out Theseus by giving him usually a link of thread and a clue, which is usually a length of thread plus the instructions to how to get the hell out of the labyrinth. And we just saw Ariadne actually draw a labyrinth, the actual labyrinth from good old Greek mythology. And the entire movie is one gigantic mind labyrinth. Another interesting little thing of Ariadne is usually at the end of the story, Theseus, because he doesn't want to fuck her, just leaves her on a deserted island.
Was it because of the bull vagina?
No, he was into that.
Oh.
So, he just leaves her on the island. It's because Theseus wants to bang her sister. So
There's a lot of women in Greek mythology who just get left places during heroic journeys.
Don't worry, she does end up marrying a god, because he ends up showing up on the island, but we won't get into that. So the island is the island of Naxos, which has a little bit of interesting description, as it appeared somewhere. Let me just read this to you. So, Theseus is cruel because he leaves Ariadne on the island of Naxos, just a beach lashed by thundering waves, an abstract place where only the seaweed moves. It is the island where no one lives, the place where obsession turns round and round on itself with no way out. A constant flaunting of death, this is the place of the soul.
Now just imagine that being read aloud by Ken Watanabe.
So you can see the island of Naxos as it's described with where Ariadne gets left and where we first meet Cobb in Limbo.
I just like how, as Mike was describing all of that, things were exploding on screen.
It was so epic.
Thank you. Also, cool, that is mostly practical.
I want to just make a quick movie connection here, if I can go into Black Dynamite territory.
Go on.
The movie focuses on labyrinths. Labyrinth was the name of the David Bowie starring film. Guess which rock star played Tesla in The Prestige? That's right. David Bowie. It's all wrapping around. Movie connections, folk. That's what I'm here for.
See, if we really want to understand Inception, we have to go back to the Dark Crystal.
Could
This
you
is all
imagine?
a Skeksis trap.
So going back to the labyrinth thing. The labyrinth. Yeah, I'm just going to keep talking about Greek mythology. Go fuck
Oh,
yourself.
I'm sorry. I thought you were going to David Bowie territory.
That's next.
Oh.
It's all that worm's fault. Just like, that worm killed Maul. So, the labyrinth in Greek mythology, it's designed as most labyrinths are, to be winding and confusing, to seal in the Minotaur for all eternity. Essentially, you never end up in the same place twice. It just keeps turning and turning on itself. And that's how the mind is designed in the movie. It's designed to... Maul, usually in this film, represents the Minotaur. Think about that. Marion Cotillard is the Minotaur.
That's more believable than Talia al Ghul.
Ew.
Most things are. Also, I love Ellen Page manipulating reality here.
Doctor Strange. That's the big reveal at the end of that movie. Cumberbatch was all misdirection.
Well, she is wearing red here. It all builds. Also, I'm sorry, that effect's just mesmerizing every time.
Also done practically.
No one did everything practically, even when it was unnecessary, so that wouldn't surprise me. How much money would it cost if we bent reality?
That's something I've always really admired about Christopher Nolan. As in, you can definitely see that on display in the Batman movies. The respect he has for practical effects, which is something that's become, like as we've detailed on this show, is becoming increasingly rare in today's filmmaking. And like Mike said, a lot of times it's seemingly unnecessary and insane. But I feel like even if it doesn't register to you that something is or isn't a special CGI effect, I feel it creates an atmosphere that you subconsciously pick up on.
Well, it's like, we'll talk about the hallway fight when it comes up, of course, but with the hallway fight, people are moving in a way that's not quite right, but your brain could tell it's not because they're not actually there. It plays into the whole subjective reality thing. They're moving in an environment that's real, but nothing's the way your brain is supposed to interpret it to be. And you can pick up on little things like that.
So I just want to point out, it was amazing whenever I saw Paprika and almost this exact same shot as it. I'm curious, Cody, have you ever seen Paprika before?
I have, actually.
Oh, an amazing movie. And Nolan has always been very upfront with the fact that that movie is 90% of the inspiration for this.
The interesting thing about this cop reflection, though, is it's all the infinite mirrors from Citizen Kane. Think about that, like in Xanadu, in Citizen Kane, he has like all of the mirrors and he's standing up. It's almost the same exact shot.
Well, it's funny because you guys recently, as of a couple months ago even, showed me Paprika for the first time, and I was expecting a lot more parallels between the two works, but I actually found that they're kind of different beasts altogether. And that the inspiration there is actually very,
it's thematic.
It's like circular. It's not through line.
Yeah, believe me, I'm not one of those people you see on IMDb saying, like, this is a ripoff of this thing. It's like, no, it's an inspiration.
Leonardo DiCaprio does become a butterfly later on, though.
I do love how there was a year where between Inception and Black Swan, Satoshi Kon just inspired the Oscars.
Oh, just going back to Xanadu for a minute, because I just like saying Xanadu.
Well, who doesn't?
Like, Xanadu and Kane, I mean, if you want to talk about a parallel, like, what's Xanadu other than a large mansion on a cliff where Kane is an old man filled with regret? I don't know why. I love Arthur just not wanting to deal with any of this bullshit.
I love
Let me say
Arthur
my
so
exposition
much,
and go
being
away.
lovely. Being this noir character.
Being the producer.
Remember when this movie just inspired fashion and a vibe for a couple of years? That we still
Well,
hear the score and everything, but...
Well, Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Oh, yeah.
Also, I find this scene very interesting because in this scene we see Arthur explaining how exactly the totems are meant to work. And it cuts between that and Cobb's totem, the top. The funny thing is, everything Arthur is saying is explaining how that totem doesn't work.
Yep.
Like, for one thing, as we see later in the movie, Cobb immediately tells Ariadne that that's how his totem works, which is defeating the entire purpose right out of the gate. Also, it works completely backwards from how any other totem in the movie is shown as working. Instead of having a unique quality that an architect couldn't guess, it's just a normal top whose distinguishing characteristic is it's a top. And what I like is, like with a lot of things in this movie, there's two interpretations. One is that it isn't really Cobb's totem. The other is that Cobb just doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. Because it's established, like, several times throughout the movie, like we said, by Cobb and by other characters, that he's not a reliable source of information. And what I think is really important to note about that is that both interpretations mean the exact same thing. The film is trying to misdirect you.
And Cobb does spend the movie basically, gathering up this team of people that can do things better than him. It's not like he has any sort of super special talent that makes him the absolute best. He more or less just has the gumption to put everyone in the same room and make them do shit.
Well, I mean, going off the movie analysis, he's hired as the director to kind of coordinate the talent.
Mm-hmm.
It's very self-deprecating if you see it as a filmmaker.
Yeah.
Hey, everybody, I'm full of shit.
Well, it is that, but at the same time, like, isn't that the truth? Like, ultimately, film is largely a work of fiction. Like, they are largely making up things as they go along. They're not really reliable narrators for anything because what they're interpreting is not real. I mean, they're telling you stories. They're telling you things that would never happen or could never happen. So, Dom being kind of a director is kind of, I think, more so a reflection of film as a genre than, like, saying, oh, he's insane and he's, all these negative connotations that the character has, which are definitely present. But if you take it out from the director's standpoint, he's crafting something that is beyond conventional understanding because he doesn't come from a conventional place.
Can we just...
So what you're saying is this scene's a dream, MB. That's what I got from that.
There are a lot of sections in this scene that make it seem very dreamlike.
Oh, yeah.
Like, Eames walking up and all of a sudden, even though he's the forger and it makes sense, he could have fake chips on him. He just suddenly has a giant stack of chips we never see him pulling out of anywhere. Or when Cobb goes down the alleyway and it seems like it's closing in on him. We don't see the walls close in on him, actually, but they're too thin for him to get through easily. It's kind of like a nightmare scenario where everything's making you claustrophobic and squeezing you. Plus the nameless henchmen that just kind of show up and are tracking him, or Sato himself appearing pretty much out of thin air to save the day, even though it doesn't make sense that a multi-millionaire CEO would be riding around possibly getting in the middle of gunfights.
So even the overhead shot when Cobb was running, it's like, it's calling attention. Hey, doesn't this look like a maze?
And again, that's a thing you could say, you could interpret as, okay, that's a clue that this is a dream, or maybe it's just a stylistic choice because the movie's about mazes. It's kind of a rabbit hole you can just go down forever.
And this is the sequence, I mean, Maul even calls out later, like, yeah, this is the exact thing that's been happening in all of the dreamscapes. Like, a bunch of people in suits chase after you, and walls seemingly close in for no reason, and...
Although, isn't this like actual location here where
Yeah,
the wall's just
Yeah.
closing?
Yeah.
Their buildings are just built that tight together.
Which again, I love because again, you can take it one way or you can take it the other. I mean, like with that location, you're being shown reality, but is that reality being shown like in a context? I'm sorry, fucking heroic Sato always fucking kills me. Come with me if you want to live.
Dip down his leather seats. Also, can we just take a moment to just be mesmerized by Tom Hardy?
I love how Tom Hardy never fails to bring the gay. Even though I'm pretty sure he's married to a woman.
Also, I can't believe that this was the first movie I ever saw Tom Hardy in. This was the first time I ever knew Tom Hardy was a thing.
Oh, you should only be introduced to Tom Hardy through Bronson. Just him naked as the day he was born, lathering himself up in just oils.
Oh, I saw that later.
In a prison cell with a giant mustache. That is how you are introduced to an actor.
And
You could go
then,
with Star Trek Nemesis if you just wanted to be confused.
It blew me away, watching the behind the scenes stuff, that was just a practical shot.
Mhm.
That was just a trick of the camera, and there wasn't a CGI lifting the stairs up. That was just them dropping down the camera. It was so cool.
And again, it's something where even if you think it's CGI whenever you see it, in the back of your head, there's still that part of you that's going, what?
well, that's what I've always felt CGI is best utilized as, is that it's supposed to be connective tissue between practical shots that don't quite work by themselves. And so many times people just use it as a replacement instead for just something that could be there. And it baffles me and honestly kind of angers me that a lot of people misuse it, because it's such an important an important tool in film.
Well, like we've chronicled on the show before, not only is it just aesthetically kind of a problem sometimes, it's also killing an industry that may never grow back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I get frustrated because when a movie does have practical effects now that are outlandish,
This guy! Sorry.
people watch it and they assume, oh, that's CGI, it's fucking shitty. Like, people complain about Crimson Peak, the ghost being all CGI, which is very strange because they're practical effects. Like, 75% or upwards of those ghosts are practical effects, and people just complain all the time about the shitty CGI in that movie, which just blows my mind. I don't understand. But because everything else is CGI movies now, if people see something that's weird, they just assume it was made with CGI and it's wrong.
Well, CGI is just the word people use for special effects now.
Yeah.
Which is kind of telling in and of itself.
Also, going back to Yusuf, remember when this guy had like 3 big movies in a row he was in?
It disappeared.
Yeah, like he was in Drag Me to Hell, he was in Inception.
He pretty much played the same character in Drag Me to Hell.
Dilip Rao.
It's an amazing name.
God, this man has one of my favorite deliveries that has ever been in a movie. And I'm not talking recently, I'm talking of all movie history. In Drag Me to Hell, whenever he's asked, why does my cell phone not work? He turns around and says, magic. Like, I'm underselling it with my impression. You have never seen a human being more done in a movie than Dilip Rao turning around saying, magic.
Can someone
Sam Raimi
edit
had so much he had to get off his chest with that one word.
Okay. Just to amuse myself, I'm going to one day make a compilation of one of Mike and I's favorite scenes in cinema history, which Nolan kind of contributed to. Michael Shannon saying, "What have you done?"
Magic.
Yes, exactly.
I want that to become a meme where anytime a character asks a question, like there's fucking, in the Force Awakens when Rey is asking Han Solo about the Force, it just cuts to Dilip. Magic.
I would stick it all over the Harry Potter movies. No one's even asking how it happened, he's just telling everyone.
What else don't I know about myself? Magic! Why does Sirius Black want me dead? Magic!
Well, that's just true. Also, just to go back a few bits, when the old man starts talking to Cobb there, creepily, that's pretty much just Nolan saying the end of the movie. And we're 45 minutes in.
Well, and here's where some people believe the movie's all a dream because he doesn't see what happens to the top. Which would be such a weird movie. Like, there's 45 minutes of plot, and then the rest is one giant dream with no resolution.
I think people take it too far to go like, well, the entire rest of the movie's a dream. I think it's just supposed to screw with you that then you're supposed to wonder when the hell you are in reality and then versus a dream at that point. Because, like, he sees the window and...
Well, I have my own thoughts about where this movie, like, where the plot winds up on the whole dream reality thing that I'll go into later, but I am against the notion that if the movie were an entire dream, that would render it invalid.
Yeah.
Because, for one thing, it's a movie, it's fake. So I've never quite understood I understand, like, from a stakes standpoint, being pissed off when a story is revealed to be imaginary, but, again, it's all imaginary, so it's not like, well, none of that even happened. And two, a dream story can be valid if what's being communicated is information about the character who's having the dream.
Yeah.
I think you can make the case for that with Inception if you subscribe to that particular interpretation, because even taken literally, like, pretty much every character exists just to give you information about Cobb.
Well, it's like, the movie kind of tells you that it's okay to think that way. Look at the storyline of Fisher. Even though the entire thing's forced upon him, like, because since the movie, getting a little bit ahead of ourselves at the end, but since the entire movie is about maybe subjective reality is perfectly acceptable, as long as you're okay, who cares? Fisher got his catharsis and can go on in life happier now.
Well, that is a theme we see with Nolan's movies. Like, the question of whether or not a happy lie is better than a hurtful truth.
Yeah.
I definitely see that with The Dark Knight. We see that with Memento and Insomnia.
We're sticking with Leonardo DiCaprio movies, Shutter Island.
Very much so. The other movie where Leo killed his wife.
Damn it, Leo, stop it!
That was so weird to see Shutter Island, like, within a month of actually going to the theater and seeing Inception. I was like, okay, so one of these influenced the other. I just don't know which.
Shutter Island was a book, I believe, originally,
Yeah.
that they adapted, so I guess that would technically come first.
It's like Swamp Thing and Man Thing.
Oh,
It was just in the ether.
I wasn't literally saying that. I was just saying, like, the insane amount of coincidences just freaked me out.
I have a theory regarding that, and that's that Titanic is actually told from the perspective of Leo, who survived, and actually he just threw Rose into the fucking water to save himself. That entire movie is just a reconstruction in his head of how he wished things happened.
So he's the old woman at the end?
Yep.
He's the heart of the ocean. No, wait, she is. Oh,
Well,
God.
the dramatic reveal is it's actually J. Edgar Hoover.
Catch him if you can. Can we do commentary for Titanic somehow?
Yes, all 7 hours. It has over-the-top Billy Zane.
Which makes it delightful. Just imagine us running out of things to say about 3 hours in.
We just start doing the Titanic theme. All pretending to be Celine Dion.
Got Ellen Page forging a pawn is the most epic thing I've ever seen.
I just want to jump back. It cracks me up, the structure of this movie, because from a certain point of view, you could say the entire thing is really focused on Cillian Murphy's character, because it's all about everyone in the movie trying to force him to act a certain way and possibly reach kind of catharsis. But they don't introduce him until just now. Like, we are a very healthy chunk of the movie in before he is thrown into the mix. And it makes it very easy to forget that he is kind of the emotional center of the film. Like, the whole movie's revolving around this dude, but he's not introduced right away. He's never the main focal point. It's always about Cobb and what he's doing, or maybe what some of the supporting characters are up to, or their conflicts. But
Well, part of the movie theory, like, again, going back to that, is, I mean, the idea of Fisher's character is that he's an audience stand-in, essentially, because they're shaping how he should feel, like a movie does with an audience. So, you could interpret that in a way as the film sort of sitting you down and explaining the rules of what's about to happen, and then finally executing that with all the rules in place to kind of make sure you pay attention.
it almost makes it seem more apt to be like a movie about a stage play in that sense. Because the audience is involved the entire time, and you have to adapt things on the fly while the audience is watching.
God, Inception, the stage experience would be...
Coming from Spider-Man, turn off the dark producers.
It's fun sticking with the Fisher as the audience idea, because, once again, going back to, with the movie thing, like, the idea of creating a cathartic moment about your life using something that's fake and has nothing to do with your life at all. It's like, in a way, that's movie making.
Yeah.
That's the way movies can function. They can have that effect on you, even though it doesn't actually reflect your life, but can give you a cathartic moment.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, all art is Inception. It's planting an idea in your head that has no business being there.
Exactly.
It also kind of shines a light on the clinical nature Nolan's often kind of criticized for when it comes to him portraying emotion in film.
You will feel sad.
We're engineering it. You will feel it.
Well, if Nolan came out as a sociopath, that would not surprise me. Like, he doesn't know how emotions work. Guns, money.
Pops.
Batman. I'm kidding.
More people.
No, Batman is apt. It wouldn't have been if Rises hadn't come out, but yeah.
I like how when you say Nolan is a sociopath, all I can think of is that Aaron Eckhart story, where he meets Nolan jogging on a beach and says, "Hey, am I going to be coming back for the next movie?" And Nolan just turns to him and says, "You're dead, man." And then jogs off into the sunset.
Still wearing the suit and the vest.
I was going to say, I can't imagine Nolan not in a vest.
He just has a jogging vest that has no sleeves.
I was thinking that when I was watching behind the scenes and them talking about, like, coming up with things in, like, Nolan's garage. It's like, was Nolan just... I can't picture Nolan just, like, sitting in a chair with, like, sweatpants on, a t-shirt, and, like,
He's wearing a tuxedo t-shirt.
Well, what's funny is that there's, like, in the Batman Begins DVD documentary stuff, you see pictures of him in his garage, like, with a big bushy beard, as he and Goyer are, hashing out different story ideas, and, like, they've got pinups of the Batman comics, like, behind them, and they've got, like, the model of the Batmobile in front of them. He's still wearing a vest. That's in his home.
He has sex in that thing, doesn't he?
I mean, if I had that many vests, I probably would.
Wait a second, is that why Bane wears a vest? Is that like some kind of directorial insertion there?
Yes.
I think it always is. Nolan's always putting himself in his movies in one way or another.
Well, if his goal was to break Batman, then I guess he, in a way, succeeded.
He broke Matthew McConaughey.
That man had to go be Randall Flagg to get back his match.
I will say, for everyone at home, we've probably spent a good half of this podcast giving Nolan shit for his films, which is hilarious because I'm actually a huge fan.
Oh, yeah.
I'd much rather see a really shitty Nolan fuck up than pretty much like 80% of the movies out there. A bad Nolan movie is still better than most other films.
Nolan's made
I
two
will
bad
say
movies.
this,
That's everybody makes at least two bad movies.
Oh, yeah, and I will say, I haven't seen Interstellar, and it's not because I have no interest in it. It's because I don't want to be disappointed. Because Nolan is, he was the first director I think I've actually got on my way to watch every single movie of. And he made probably my favorite Batman movie, which is not The Dark Knight, actually. My favorite is still Batman Begins. but I immensely admire his work. I think he's done great stuff. It's just, it's been frustrating the last couple of years because between Dark Knight Rises and from everything I've heard of Interstellar, it's kind of on a downslope right now. And it seems like he hit kind of a bump, and this was the movie that kind of caused that because he kind of crescendoed and hit the top.
I think at this point he became too big for studio notes.
Yeah,
like,
and I don't...
If he can take an idea like this, which is pretty out there and confusing, and make $800 million off of it without a previous franchise to support it, studios have to realize, oh, fuck, well, he knows what he's doing, let him do what he wants.
Yeah, and that's what's frustrating to me because I don't like the idea of this, like, him already having given all he has to offer, if that makes any sense.
Well, we'll see. He's got Dunkirk coming up, which I'm holding out hope for.
Yeah, it's like Mike and I are obsessed with the Steven Spielberg movie 1941. Not the movie itself, but just the concept of that movie. And that being the symbol of the period in every artist's career where they get so big and so good so fast that they reach for the stars and just completely burn themselves up on re-entry. And more often than not, that can be, like, for the truly great filmmakers, a learning experience. I feel like with Nolan, he's one of the few directors whose 1941 moment didn't happen all at once with one movie, because he was so insulated with The Dark Knight Rises, which, for one thing, made all the money in the world, and two, was such a slow burn on people kind of realizing how flawed that movie was. And then you get to Interstellar, which just was a complete bottoming out moment. Like, that's where shit got real. And I have, like, the utmost faith in a director like Nolan that he would be able to bounce back from something like that. Like, if David Fincher can bounce back from The Curious Case of Benjamin Button, Nolan can pull his head out of his ass for the rest of his career. The only question is, and this comes with, like, every 1941, is this director going to, you see this as a moment of, like, breaking out of his shell, breaking away from the yes men and realizing, oh, I fucked up, didn't I? Or is that just going to make him more introverted? Like, we see this with Zack Snyder, where the worst thing that ever happened to him was making Watchmen. Because that movie tanked so hard and had such mixed reactions from critics and fans that he just kind of convinced himself, okay, I made a great movie. I don't care what anybody says. This was my masterpiece. I'm the man who made Watchmen now. I'm untouchable. And that kind of made him bulletproof to criticism.
It would help if Warner Brothers would just stop handing him giant boatloads of money.
And superhero franchises.
And we see that happen over and over again with history. We saw it happen with Tim Burton for a while. We saw it happen and continue to happen with M. Night Shyamalan.
M. Night Shyamalan is the one that confuses me, because it's like, just, is a wealthy millionaire just, is this some kind of trading places situation? It's like,
German Nazi gold.
I'll give this director all the money in the world. Like, is there some kind of bet going on with two millionaires gave Zack Snyder and M. Night Shyamalan just all the power in the world? And they're seeing which one burns out first.
Meanwhile, the studio is just trying to kill M. Night finally. Like with, okay, we will give him a beloved property in Avatar, The Last Airbender. He's still going! What?
God, didn't that movie get something like a 6% on Rotten Tomatoes?
Oh, it's apparently one of the worst films ever made.
I watched one scene from it online once, and it made me want to cry.
Well, the thing that makes Avatar, The Last Airbender, because of another awful movie that came out at the time, Yeah, I said it. The problem with The Last Airbender, from what I've heard, because I've only seen like 5-minute stretches of it, is it's literally unwatchable because of the 3D transfer. Like, it was already a dark movie. Then when it was darkened for 3D, it made it where it's just blackness for 90 minutes.
From what I saw, the CGI was just terrible. Like when Earthbenders do their stuff, they like kind of punch the ground and a pebble pops up.
It looks like an early 2000s Nickelodeon movie.
What I love is that it's essentially like M. Night Shyamalan spent all that money to make that episode of Wacky Deli where the film is overexposed. It's kind of like the only other comparison I can think of is X-Men Origins Wolverine, which is a work print. Yeah. It's like they just released a work print into theaters. That's the kind of company 20th Century Fox was at that time. But I should say, dial things back for a minute and just say, with us kind of poking fun at Nolan here and there, that's not out of any kind of outrage or any real desire to take him down a peg. It's the same thing I have with Tim Burton, where I love and respect what he's done immensely, but there are those director-isms that you can't help but poke fun at sometimes because they're so specific.
It's like whenever people bring up, Tim Burton or Johnny Depp, like, it's just something that, and this is the thing that you can do with comic book writers too. Like, they have specific quirks themselves. Like, anyone who's crafting any sort of story, once they get good at it and get a repetition out of it, you'll start to see some patterns.
It's always funny whenever it's... I'm sorry.
And Nolan has some of the most upfront patterns.
Oh yeah, it's always funny when it's so specific, like Martin Scorsese and his Christ poses in every single one, which he did not realize he was doing until The Departed, which blows my mind.
And on the other end of the spectrum, you have Tarantino, who is painfully aware of what he's doing. He's like, well, I have to force a trunk shot into Hateful Eight, even though there's no trunks. We'll figure something out.
Tarantino made director-isms into an art form. It's like, he's the other way. It's like, I would have nothing if I didn't have my Tarantino. But I think Nolan has some of the most comedic director-isms. Just because, like Mike said earlier, they kind of come from not really understanding how really specific things were.
Well, it's also, I think, the thing that's kind of comedy gold with some of Nolan's thing, and the thing that I think a lot of people latch onto immediately is he takes himself so seriously. Like, everything is taken seriously. The Batman movies are taken seriously, even though innately they're still movies about a guy who dresses up like an animal fighting a clown and a guy with a really silly voice who Nolan doesn't realize is silly. He sees that as genuinely compelling.
And David Bowie as Nikolai Tesla creating an electric clone machine to confuse Christian Bale.
I don't understand what you're saying. That's just history. Right down to David Bowie.
But yeah, that's something you can make fun of. I also love that about The Prestige. That is taken dead seriously. That is opera.
Oh, I freaking absolutely adore The Prestige, especially when it gets over the top like that, because I think that was at a point in Nolan's career where he could do that, and even if he didn't have the mindset to understand what he was doing, it still worked within the narrative.
Yeah, well, that's like I was saying earlier, that's another example of, like, you can make fun of that, but also I really love it. And the love, like, comes from the fact that you can poke fun at it. But
then there's the area where it kind of slides into, okay, you can't, no, you went too far with that, which is Dark Knight Rises. All of that movie is essentially him thinking he can still do the same thing, but not realizing it's getting away from him. The material is literally falling through his fingers, and he can't maintain a sense of control over it because he thinks, I'll just do what I always do.
Yeah, it's putting on autopilot when you're a little bit too secure in your own abilities. Although I just want to put a pin in this to say, I've always been fascinated by the flight attendant. So I want to know what her story is.
What did they tell her was going on? Some kind of weird sex thing?
She's into it. She has no qualms about any of this. They must be paying her a mint.
Does she think they're just draining the spinal fluid out of Cillian Murphy to sell on the black market? Oh God, he's so gaunt already.
He's a small man.
I've just something that I've always been noticing about this scene is that essentially they're drowning in pee.
Yep.
I should have made it slightly yellow.
It'd show up better on film.
Like, oh, it burns.
Just have the same tinge to it that all the Arkham scenes and Begins have.
So this might be a good time to bring this up, just because I always associate this scene with the trailers, and the trailers with the Inception noise. There's apparently a certain amount of debate going over who actually created the noise. So I had to do research into this, because damn it, I had to know. Hans Zimmer provided the score for the movie, and a lot of people assumed he was the one who made that noise, and he's actually gone on record as saying, oh yeah, we made that, that was me. However, other people have stepped up saying that that was a load of shit, and he was not the one to have actually made the noise. From as far as I can tell, it's actually created by composer and sound designer Mike Zarin, who made all the sounds for the first trailer. They basically provided him with shots of Cobb, like, on the train and a couple of other little pieces. So he didn't have a lot to work with. So he wanted some dramatic percussion kind of sounds to make the trailer interesting and want you coming back for more. He just didn't have the footage to really support it, so he had to do it through the soundscape. So that's how he came up with these kind of brassy percussion noises that were picked apart and expanded upon in several other trailers. The third trailer for Inception was probably the most notable one that most people saw, and that one was more or less sound designed by Zach Hempsey. So a lot of people credit him also for making the noise, and I think he took it and maybe made it more prominent. But if you go back and watch all three trailers, it mostly hits like when the Inception logo comes up. There's three of those loud brom noises in a row.
I like how those guys are unsung heroes to modern filmmaking, because Inception pretty much created the modern trailer, for better or worse. It was hilarious watching the Battleship trailer, which has Battleship.
I would say it's definitely for the worst.
It's a trend. I mean, every time you get a trend, like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the remake, they took a noise, I think, from the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, that weird camera noise. And for a while, like, every horror movie had to use that noise and same trailer setup.
I want to see a romantic comedy trailer that has the long...
I think someone made that, actually. Just a little note about the number on this taxi is a jumbled up version of 3502, which is a reoccurring number. It's on the train. It's the, I believe it's the hotel room of Cobb and Mao. I think it appears in a couple other places and appears jumbled up.
Yeah, isn't that part of the safe combination and all that kind of stuff?
I don't know. I don't think it's part of the safe combination, but it's a couple places. And it kind of continually reappears, either in the dream world or where we're being told reality is. It's an interesting little motif.
To go back to how the trailers are designed, I thought it was interesting because...
Sorry, I just Tom Hardy about to blow fucking Nobby away.
No hesitation. When they were making the trailers, first off, Nolan provided the clips that they could use in the first trailer because he didn't want to give everything away. But later on, as trailers went through, he actually stepped in and handed them like some of the score and got involved with how they presented the marketing material, which is interesting because a lot of the directors either don't have that capability or just don't have the time or the interest to get involved with the marketing and tell them how it should be done. So that was kind of fascinating that he would step in there and kind of push the direction of the trailers, which obviously works. A lot of people showed up to the movie.
Oh, yeah, this is a movie that pretty much everyone saw. And those are rare these days, like outside of Marvel movies.
Oh yeah, for a brand new franchise, that's insane. It did something like 800 million worldwide. That summer, that was like what everyone saw. Everyone went to go see Inception. Plus, it was a good talking point because there's a lot of, little questions about it. Everyone could have their own side discussions. It wasn't a straight up action film where when you saw it, you left and said, that was fun, and moved on.
I went to a midnight screening of this. That was so much goddamn fun.
You got to hear everyone. You got to hear everyone at the theater at 2:00 in the morning go, "Abuh."
I'm really amazed Warner Brothers never. Well, I'm not so amazed because Christopher Nolan didn't seem on board with the idea, but that they never just pushed forward a sequel to this movie. After how much bank the first one made and the clout it gave them, you'd almost assume they'd jump right on and say, fuck it, we're doing Inception 2 or like an Inception spin-off.
I vaguely remember Nolan at one point saying, like, yeah, I can make another Inception movie, I just don't know if I want to.
Yeah, he mentioned he was thinking about the possibility of doing a video game sequel.
Yeah, that was being developed at one point, but he just said, like, we're developing an Inception video game, and nothing ever came out of it.
And they they did, like, one little comic, but I think they actually talked about doing a full comic book series or something through maybe, like, IDW?
Yeah, if you go through the special features, there's a secondary disc on the Blu-ray anyways. It has a prequel comic to the movie, which I don't know how necessary it really is, but hey, that's something that's out there. I don't think it really expands the universe anyway, it just kind of sets up the movie.
It's
which
fun.
Is strange, because you've already seen the movie, why do you need the prequel comic?
I'm always confused by that.
People will buy anything.
That's true. Well, I mean, you have a fun time with the universe, you just want to involve yourself with it as much as possible. It takes a long time to get movies made, sometimes they don't get made. It's a fun way to have an expanded universe. In most cases, it's normally terrible. Like, I've heard nothing but bad things about the Mad Max Fury Road prequel comics. Tales from Pacific Rim I just thought was terrible. It's strange. I really love the movies, but the supplementary material often just doesn't quite hit the same mark.
I just want to say I love Tom Hardy at his old-timey actor vanity mirror.
Transforming slowly.
I never noticed
Tom Berenger.
I never noticed this, but Joseph Gordon-Levitt wearing a black mask and a red blazer. So is this what John Robin Blake would have become?
That's where you got the idea.
God, they're just manhandling Tom Berenger. Tom Berenger's Hurts acting destroys me. Oh.
I just love the fact that this movie brought back Tom Berenger.
It blew my mind when I was watching it the first time. Holy shit, Tom Berenger's in this? He's in a thing? He's alive?
Well, that was what, fucking Christopher Plummer as dying old man in hospital bed earlier?
No, that was Pete Postlethwaite.
Yep.
Oh yeah, the other Christopher Plummer.
The better one, I'm sorry.
I miss Pete.
Also, I just love how he tried that again with Matthew Modine and Dark Knight Rises, and that didn't pan out at all.
Because you can't save Matthew Modine.
I like Nolan's obsession with actors who have that face.
I'm just glad he decided he needed Cillian Murphy in everything. Like, even if it's 2 seconds, he's got to be hidden somewhere. He's like Sam Raimi's classic.
And weirdly enough, this is the best he's ever been utilized on a Nolan film. Like,
oh, yeah.
I love him as Scarecrow, but he gets such a little role in all of those movies that this is like the most play that Nolan has with him. He makes good use of them.
Oh, yeah.
I like Cillian Murphy being brought in to add humanity to a story.
Yeah, I love
He's
how...
an underutilized actor. He should be in way more things.
He needed to be the villain in Tron 2, goddammit.
Oh, man.
We're so close.
We almost saw Electric Murphy.
That's still... there are nights when I can't sleep thinking about it.
I love how we all just started yelling over each other in our anger.
Tron!
Oh.
You hear that, Disney? You sons of bitches.
I still want to see the weird alternate universe where instead of Christian Bale, he was the one cast as Batman.
I don't know how he would have been as a Batman, but I think his Bruce Wayne would have been fascinating.
Well, just imagine a cowl based around that face.
I don't have to imagine it. I've seen the screen tests.
No, Nolan would have gone back and he would have just painted it on his face, just so there wouldn't be any cheekbones hidden.
He looks like he should be playing like an Andy Warhol Batman.
Well, his version, the version I actually did in the screen test was, I thought, interesting for the couple of seconds that, like, he had lines in it, but he was basically going for a more creepy, like, whispery, like, almost Michael Keaton-esque Batman. Like, he doesn't, like, yell like Bale does, he just kind of goes like, they did the scene of, like, where was Falcone at the docks, and his version of it was like, where's Falcone at the docks? As opposed to Bale's like, where was Falcone at the docks?
I would have loved to have seen an entire trilogy with that.
Could you imagine
Where's the detonator? He wouldn't have given it to a normal person.
Could you imagine the scene of Batman screaming on the Batpod running towards Joker, but it's Murphy?
Also, I love how Cillian Murphy as Batman would have made Heath Ledger look the more physical, imposing one.
Joker just beats the shit out of Batman.
And I just want to say, Killian.
I was saying it right. Yes. I think if you took his face and just, like, they give the Captain America treatment, where they just CGI it onto a different body.
He does have a large face.
Like from the face up, he looks like he could be a great Batman. He's got, really great facial structures. But
he made a great woman.
I still need to see that movie. But he's a very small, like he's a shorter guy, very trim. He doesn't scream Batman to me in any way.
It's like DJ Qualls as Batman. Could you imagine?
The sexiest Batman.
Well, goes without saying. I love how this movie handles exposition. Because it's constant. The exposition literally never stops throughout the entire movie.
That's why it's a heist movie, because it's the one type of movie you can get away with that.
Also, I love, like, the occasional... One of my favorite parts of the movie is the occasional therapy sessions he has with Ariadne.
Get me through my own mind, Ellen Page.
James, it's actually a really fantastic point. I can't think of any other movie where you can sit a character down and have another character go, listen, let me explain a couple things to you in excruciating detail. And you're accepting of it. Like in a heist movie, it makes perfect sense because that's one of the tropes of them. Like you have to know all about how the guards take their tea at the museum so you know when they go on break. Whereas in any other movie, if they sat you down and explained the rules, you'd be like, God damn it, Rambo, I don't give a shit.
God damn it, Rambo. You can take anything away from this commentary. God damn it, Rambo.
Oh,
also, I couldn't understand a word you said.
Well, to go for another Stallone movie, look at Rocky. I mean, he's got to do what he's got to do. That's all the exposition you need.
That's it?
Well, going back to the idea of the Nolanisms, like, that is one of the biggest ones right there, is the idea of he can't just go on simple, okay, action is more powerful than words. He goes for a lot of, like, look at Alfred in the Batman movies. Like, that dude will drone on and drone on and on and on and on.
Look at the fucking microwave emitter, which is explained with the same exact dialogue twice.
Although apparently that wasn't enough. According to IMDb, did you read the factoid about, like, when it shows in Japan on TV, they actually have counters that show you what level of dream they're in, just so you don't get them mixed up.
I love how in the land of anime, they felt this movie was too complicated.
Right. Come on, guys. This is
the land that gave us Paprika. That movie where at a certain point you just have to say, fuck it, anime.
I'm just gonna roll with this.
We're just gonna watch philosophy battle.
This goes way, way back into the movie. But I totally missed my chance to bring it up before. But, Cobb mentions their plan has to be very specific because he always believes that cathartic actions have way more weight than anything else or any sort of negativity. Which is a beautiful sentiment. And probably one of the reasons why I appreciate this Nolan film more than any other is because that ending kind of embraces that idea that you had that cathartic, great feeling. When you look at Nolan's other films, you don't really get that, or at least in a true sense. Like, in Batman Begins, the Narrows are all fucked up, and Batman basically goes, well, I have to keep doing this for a while. Dark Knight, Harvey Dent dies, and Batman has to go on the run. Like, his whole image in life is in shambles.
Or the Prestige.
Rachel's dead.
I mean, look at the Prestige, where, hey, you know that mystery you've been trying to solve the whole time? Twins.
Yep, and now one of them's dead.
Like,
And also, the other magician has a whole tub full of dead clones. Just, it's miserable.
I always love how Twins drove Hugh Jackman to murderously clone himself.
Over and over. Like, just most of Nolan's movies normally have a very bittersweet ending, and this one, I mean, obviously there's a sadness to it, because Cobb still doesn't have his wife back. She's dead forever. But, like, he does get reunited with his family. The heist works perfectly. You know, like, Cillian Murphy gets to feel good about his life and his relationship with his father for the first time. It's really one of the most uplifting endings to a Nolan movie so far.
Oh, it's the most, I would say. Like, I would say this one is just... It's almost the culmination of all the movies that have come before, and then finally he said, I'm going to do something a little different this time.
yeah.
And
For the audience, it's a huge, you know, if not that his other movies are a slog to get through, but it's great to be able to sit through one of these and at the end be like, oh, I can feel good now. That's nice.
And more to the point, this film has the distinction of having an ending that is widely debated, like, is it a dream, is it not a dream? But that doesn't make a difference in terms of the happiness of it, because if he's living a dream, he's living in his perfect version of reality. Even if he's dreaming, he's still experiencing happiness and joy, so really, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, and it's all, at the end, fiction.
Unless we pick up on the thematics from The Dark Knight Rises. If it's a dream, then it's a lie, and apparently that'll just, for whatever reason, not work in the long run. It'll cause corruption, things will fall apart, even though everything looks like it's mostly fine. This is how you get Banes.
This is how you get Bane. I don't like Bane being referred to as an STD.
The Banes. Oh, impossible.
It goes mobile.
God, I gotta go soak in a tub now.
Although, if you were going to get an STD, wouldn't you want it to, if you had to pick one of the STDs, wouldn't you want it to be the Banes? Like, you just come down with a goofy voice?
Have you seen the back of Bane's head in that movie? I don't want that on my genitalia. I need that back brace.
Your balls have, like, little breathers on them for some reason.
Of course.
Oh God, you try to get busy with somebody, they're like, can I take that off? Ugh, it would be very painful. For you, too, so. You know.
Seriously, it spreads. It spreads.
This is the moment where I learned the truth about despair.
Oh, you think contraception is your ally?
God, I'm just imagining Bane in sex times, just... I was wondering what would break first. Your spirit or your body?
They're trying to go with Hyman. I respect the fact you didn't go with Hyman.
No, I
You'll
think it's
fuck
straight up
like
quote
young
there.
man. Admirable. What mistaken?
He picks up his hooker, he runs outside. We go mobile. They fuck on the streets. Everyone claps.
Straightness doesn't belong. You feel as if straightness belongs to you when truly it belongs to me.
I was like,
I
to
was
make this
fornicating in the dark. Molded by it.
not to make this even stupider, but I want somebody to edit in a shot of one of them taking off their balaclava and it's John Diggle.
I just want to do. We need to do a super count or something for Box Office Pulp of how many times we've done Bane saying mobile,
Wow.
because it's in like every episode.
It's so fun.
Mobile.
Wow. We should go back and listen to some of the old episodes just so we can start using some of those old running jokes back again. We just left them on the wayside. It's sad.
Oh
They're
God,
abandoned.
I don't want us to become self-aware.
We became self-aware a long time ago.
It's true. Like, we haven't done a cum joke yet today, but there's time.
Well, this movie's long as shit. There's plenty of time.
Robot cum jokes. You have to have robot in there.
We can get those in. I mean, I'll settle for normal cum. We could Skyfall.
Maybe.
I mean, there's all sorts of stuff. Flashbacks, folk. Go back home, listen to your other stuff.
So look at Tom Hardy just being awesome and gay.
Them lips.
There's sexual tension.
So, this is something I would never really look into because it confuses me and I don't understand it, but I think that's why it makes it fascinating. But the internet culture of shipping characters together and why they pick certain ones, like, none of it makes sense to me, but it's fascinating in a way. And I remember for the longest time, even still, you see people refer to, like, how Eames and Arthur should be an item just because they're sassy to each other in the movie?
They were their day's version of Finn and Poe Dameron.
Well, I think, for one thing, it comes down to you just want to see those dudes make out. And we all do. So I always kind of just interpret that as people are really, really, really hungry for more queer representation in fiction. And they just kind of have to draw conclusions sometimes.
I mean, the queer part isn't what confuses me. It's the pairings. Like, after Civil War, now people are like, oh, Bucky and Sam Wilson together. And it's just, it seems like the two that argue, those are the ones people want.
Yeah, pretty much.
Because that's how they've been trained by years of romantic comedies.
Yeah, essentially.
Like, if those characters were a man and a woman, they would fuck at the end.
Well, the thing is, it's like, the weird ship obsession pairings aren't even just queer pairings. They're also straight pairings, and sometimes they're even more puzzling when they're straight. Like the incest pairings.
Oh, yeah.
I enjoy that when the show, like, gives you a pairing on a platter, like, these two, and maybe hints at it in the movie, and then everyone afterwards goes, no! We're gonna throw that out. We've got our own. Like, Ariadne in this one, like, there's the whole kiss scene, and I don't think that gained any traction with the fan base. They're like, no, we've got our thing. We're good.
Well, didn't you see the Lego movie? You don't tell people how to play with their toys. They make their own fun. Also, look at the business page here. It's weird to think that, yeah, she was totally checking that girl out.
I love how that Tom Hardy decided to choose that form.
Yep.
Seems appropriate.
Seriously, look at Paige just scoping her out. Did Sato just cop a feel?
Yes. That's that fucking mirror shot all the way to Hardy.
Sato just shoves him away. Sato. Sato has no time for your tomfoolery.
Also, we've missed the moment because we were talking about robot cum or something like an hour ago. I've always been obsessed with the scene where Cobb asks Sato if they're going to have any trouble from the airline, and Sato's like, I hope not. I bought it. I just love how that's the only time in cinema where someone being a ruthless, domineering businessman is treated as lovable and scampish.
No.
Like, that is some Scrooge McDuck shit there.
When Bruce Wayne and Batman Begins is like, oh, they ought to allow me. I bought the place. Put some tables together.
No, that's not lovable. You're supposed to go, oh, that dick.
Yeah, I mean, it's Batman. He's a piece of shit. We're not supposed to like Batman. That's how it works.
He's a violent, psychopathic vigilante who bought that hotel to make sure you didn't pay attention to the fact that he beats people up and breaks our Constitution in half, doesn't work with the law, and enables psychopathic villainy.
Make Gotham great again.
I believe in Harvey Dent.
No.
We just cut to the Adam Warrock song.
The moment that birthed 1,000 memes.
I was about to say, it's weird actually watching this scene, because you just expect Side-Eye Fry to walk up.
No, you expect Exhibit.
I love how Yusuf is the one who in a car chase for like
Seems like such a
50
weird thing
minutes.
The logic just seems so flimsy for why they brought him in the first place. Like, we need someone to tailor drugs when we're in the dreams. Which...
Oh, no. Well, going by the movie theory, like, he's essentially the special effects guy. He's the guy there to provide, like, the technical aspect of it.
Which he doesn't really do at all, and then they leave him at the top layer. So the guy they need to take with them for the riskier parts, they just leave.
Also, notice how Ellen Page had no reaction to that. We should have known then, because look at Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
See, that's why the shippers threw
I'm
that out.
swooning right now. You know, I know Ellen Page didn't go away, but I still miss Ellen Page. I miss when she was in everything for like 3 years.
Okay, this blew me away that this was practical.
Seriously? Wow.
This entire room's practical. They're just tilting it, and everyone has to hold on.
Star Trek acting?
Just to tilt that stuff. It's like they built the entire thing on a gimbal.
It's like, no, you can use fish wire.
I know, it's like it's so unnecessary. Like,
Magicians do it all the
millions
time.
of dollars.
They're actually in the rotating room from Nightmare on Elm Street.
They had to actually audition like all of the extras for this too, because they had to get people who wouldn't get sick.
What, did they throw them around in like one of those gyroscopes they put astronauts in?
I do wonder what they did. Just keep tilting them over. Are you going to throw up? Are you going to throw up?
This is
It's like-
4Gs. What's now? What now?
It's like, I threw up, but on the plus side, I got to go to space camp.
And now I'm in a movie.
Then, as we all know, the true reason that all of this was done was Nolan's then current wife was brought into that set, had to make some last-minute adjustments, and then he was at the controls, turned them, and the rest is history.
She was impaled on Cillian Murphy's face.
God, it is sharp.
Seriously, I've never seen a man be more beautiful and more scary at the same time. It's weird. It's like what Lucifer would look like.
Cody, one day I want you to do the Mr. Charles. I just want you to walk up to me and just introduce yourself as Mr. Charles and just do this entire spiel to me.
To be fair, if Cody walked up to you in real life, I don't think you would know the difference. You would probably think you were dreaming.
I would hope I was dreaming. I don't want this to be real. I just try to stab Cody immediately.
You're
No,
taking my
you're
lines.
Get out of my mind, you witch doctor!
Hey,
No, you
Cody,
don't
we're
practice
fucking
stabbing
doing
on
it
me.
live. You happy now? We're doing it live.
Were you practicing your stabbing, man?
I just break a bottle immediately.
You produce a gun, just put it to your head. I'm dreaming. It's not even Cody. It's just
There's a train.
He looks like him.
Let's do the entire mall death scene.
I jump out a window. You're very confused because you're not telling me to stop.
No, it would be Mike threatening to jump out of a window. I hate this fucking podcast!
Ah, that's another one off the list.
Cody, please tell me you're actually keeping a list these days.
Of all the in-jokes we should be doing. No, it's a good idea.
I like this. I'm going to
We
start
don't really.
doing it.
We don't have to generate new content. We just say our like 13 in-jokes and call it a day. That's the movie. That's the entire podcast.
That's the movie.
I like to think that this commentary is our own private act of inception. Like at the end we'll feel this cathartic relief that we finally got to the bottom of this thing when really we didn't.
Cody pulls out.
We weren't recording the entire time. We have to do it again, but deeper.
Cody pulls out a tiny windmill and starts crying.
Hey, I am all for us, instead of just releasing this, doing a commentary for this commentary.
Can we just keep doing that like every year? On the
The next commentary is slightly slower.
Just keep doing it by 1% slower over and over again. Until we get to the limbo portion, which we release a 10-hour recording.
It's just an ambient soundtrack. It's just us singing the song from the soundtrack.
Someone has to download it and then speed it up to know what we're saying.
It's just frog noises.
James, what's the name of that podcast that...
Sing more, Cody.
I'm not French. I don't know the lyrics.
I'm not French.
What you were saying, MB?
James, what is the name of that podcast that has them reviewing Grown Ups 2 every week?
Oh, yeah. The worst idea of all time podcast.
Yeah, I think I found a worse idea, which is us continually doing commentaries for our own commentaries.
Would we actually be commenting on us commenting on the movie, or would we be doing a commentary about the movie again?
No, we'd be doing a commentary on the commentary.
Yeah.
What the hell are we talking about?
Oh god, it's so many layers.
And then we would do a commentary of that commentary that we just recorded.
And just keep going. Can we just do this as a new podcast? We just record an episode 1 and just keep going from there.
We just make a recursive podcast to see how long it goes before someone's like, the original was 20 episodes ago. What the fuck was the original content about?
Okay.
That's how the Scooby-Doo podcast is going to go.
No spoilers for future podcasts.
Oh, sorry.
But I am marking this. On this day that you are listening to this, folks, a year from now, we will release a commentary for our Inception commentary. I am saying this on the podcast, so we have to do it. I have never been more for something.
This was supposed to be our April podcast, right? We do this every year for April Fool's Day, but we legitimately do it over and over.
We're telling them what we're going to do. That completely defeats the idea.
Right, but then when we do the podcast, we talk about the fact that we brought it up.
Exactly, but is this a re-recording of the original recording? Or are we just repeating? See, it's in too deep already.
Okay, this is a fascinating moment unstuck in time, because just think, a year from now, we are going to be talking about the thing we're talking about right now.
No, we'll probably still be talking about Cillian Murphy's sharp face.
True. Right now in the time stream, future James is commenting on current James, commenting on future James, commenting on current James, commenting on future James, commenting on future James.
Just wait until you realize you're saying the same things past you said pretty much at the same time, meaning that you're linked entirely. Like your consciousness pretty much is just spread over all time and set in its ways.
It's too late. Always has been. Too late.
I think I'm with Mike now. I hate this podcast.
Good.
So can we just talk about Cillian Murphy?
There you go.
Being sedated in front of an unconscious Tom Berenger in a fancy hotel. And Leo was there. And Tom Hardy was on the floor.
As he often is.
And Ellen Page was in a chair in a suit.
No, now we're just doing the Arnold commentary. And then I walked in and I put him to sleep.
Could you imagine Arnold as Cobb?
Actually, yes, that'd be fascinating. Are we talking old Arnold or a young prime Arnold?
Current Arnold, because that would be hilarious.
You know, it only just occurred to me that I never brought this out. That would have been perfect for that entire conversation, too.
It would have. It really
we'll do that next commentary.
Just introduce it.
Just think, a year from now, you'll be listening to Cody talk about that about that sound, and you'll be able to actually make the sound. See, this is the beauty of the recursive commentary.
God, we're fucking stupid.
Yes.
I love it, though. This is the greatest idea we've ever had. One day we'll talk about movies.
I think Dan Deacon did something similar with one of his songs. He took like a Miley Cyrus song and then repeated it on top of itself like 1,000 times to make a new song. I think we should do that with podcasts. And now I actually want to focus on the legitimate
20
movie.
minutes later.
Right.
This movie's long enough for us to stop talking about the movie for a while.
It still gets at good points. Yay, Action Yusuf. We're coming up on the hallway fight, which to me is one of the greatest moments in movies ever.
Period.
Sitting
yeah.
in a movie theater watching Arthur fight this dude on the ceiling as the room spins around and gravity goes all haywire, I lost my shit. Like, I was enjoying the movie. I saw that. It was basically a reformation of why I love movies, why I sit down and have this podcast, just for that one particular moment, because it was so amazing.
Yeah, plus intercut with all of this other stuff, it's like...
Oh, the editing's fantastic.
It's a smorgasbord of just cinema.
God, it blew my mind again. Like, for the second time when I was just watching them film it practically. Like, just watching them do the moves from a different camera point of view was like, it's even more unreal.
Also, I think we can all pretty much agree, Zimmer's best score.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
Oh, for sure.
It's like this and probably Sherlock Holmes.
God, it's fantastic. It looks so unnatural, but, you know, none of it's CGI, so your mind accepts it so much easier. Everything looks right, but everything's wrong. God, it's amazing.
That's fascinating to think that pretty much this entire score is just that Edith Piaf song slowed down and then recreated with an orchestra.
Yeah.
Something I really enjoy doing whenever I'm bored is just taking normal songs, putting them into Audacity, and then slowing them down beyond comprehension, because more often than not, you get an interesting piece of music.
You do, yeah.
You should play them backwards, look for satanic messages.
I do that too.
Yeah. Do something.
Magic, guys.
Oh,
Be hilarious.
This is
Like
just
they
a
all have
wild
broken
ride.
necks now.
They're all dead.
just
It's like,
dead.
ha-ha. Well, it's a dream world. They're all in limbo.
Meanwhile, in James Bond.
I just like how this movie becomes like an early 2000 squad shooter for a minute. Rainbow Six, Inception.
Although really, it's strange because this is supposed to be Nolan's tribute to James Bond, and this is the part of the movie I am least interested in.
So you're just gonna stop talking.
I'm done. Yeah, I'm done. I'm zoned out.
Well, I
I
mean,
don't know, the all ice chase it did not hold my attention the same way that some of the other fights did, especially coming off of the really cool cut between the slow-mo van flip and the hallway fight, which was just mind-blowing, and then you have this, it's almost a palate cleanser, because everything looks very close to the same. The action itself didn't really stick out in the same way as everything else did.
well, I love the snow stuff, but even for me, it's kind of it's a really great action scene and all that, but it's kind of standard in comparison to everything else around it. I've always kind of felt that way.
I do kind of like the implication that since that's a layer deeper into the dream, it's just less work was put into it, so it's snow and a building, and everything is plain and uniform. Again, it's like that one, like, really late in the game level where everything is just the same tile copied and pasted.
It's a fun little behind-the-scenes fact. They built this set, this is in Canada, because they were promised that it looks like it may snow early this season. And then they just had to build the set and then wait to see if it actually snowed. Or if they were just lied to.
It seems like every time a movie desperately depends on there being snow, is a guarantee that there will not be snow.
I ended up getting lucky because I think there was some kind of record that was the most snow in like 30 years in that region.
Lucky bastards.
I think it's all just a scam by the fake snow people.
I think so. God, fake snow's weird.
I love how in French the name of this song is No, I Do Not Regret Anything, which is a hilarious name for a song. How dare you? I do not want this cheeseburger.
I think you have to say it in like the most Henry Kissinger style you can. No, I do not have any regrets at this time.
Not
In
yet.
D minor.
But I will. Oh, I will.
I mean, it's no the sound of Smash Mouth, but it's alright.
You can look that up on YouTube.
Oh,
It's
Cody.
our material. I don't care. You don't have to go to YouTube. If it's our material, you have to.
Yes. So, Cody, you brought up the name spell dream thing, like, earlier.
Yes, I recall doing that.
I mean, it was 6 hours ago, so you may not.
Well, it depends on what dream level we're talking about, but yeah.
But a lot of the names in this movie actually do have some kind of dream-related meaning.
Mm-hmm.
Like, no, not Maul. Maul is actually probably the laziest of anything I've ever seen in a movie. It just means bad. Like, it's really weird. Fuck it.
That sounds like it could be a name. Good enough.
But, like, Yusuf, which is Arabic for Joseph, in the Quran, he had the ability to interpret dreams and stuff, and introduce opening up for a dream. Cobb means, like, what? Lord or boss or something, or maybe that's Dom. It's Dom, and Cobb means also master or something like that as well.
It means cobbler.
Well,
Sure.
it means that thing that you have after you eat all the corn. That's what Leo is in this movie. That's why he's so white.
He's the husk.
But, like, Arthur, I've always taken that as being a King Arthur thing. Just since King Arthur has the Arthurian legend has some dream stuff where he's kind of sleeping in Avalon, waiting to be used again when called upon. It's kind of Arthur's role. And then Fisher kind of ties into that, kind of the Fisher King name.
Right. Action Yusuf and his middle finger.
Yusuf has so much action. And then this van will fall for the next hour and a half.
I read that Fisher actually was partially an homage to the chess master. Was it Robbie Fisher?
Bobby Fischer.
Robbie.
It's possible because of all the chess illusions throughout the movie. I believe Ames is named after a architect.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously throughout the entire film, Nolan's love of architecture is well on display.
This is like
I know jack
porn.
shit about architecture, so I really can't comment on it with any sort of authority, but I'm sure it's there and probably impressive to people that do know stuff about architecture.
This entire movie is just one long screed against Frank Lloyd Wright.
Isn't everything, though?
I would say that you don't even necessarily have to be an architecture guy. You just have to be a visual guy to be able to appreciate the level that this movie goes to sometimes.
So goddamn angry at Sato.
You know I'm dying, right? I was gonna let you fight.
Falling! We're falling!
I like how they just look like they're putting their hands up in a roller coaster.
Apparently-
Space Levitt.
Gordon Levitt had to do so much wire work that Nolan had to go out of his way to apologize to him when he won some sort of Oscar or some sort of award for this movie.
From what I've heard, the harness is very uncomfortable on other regions.
Oh, yeah.
I think Del Toro does it on purpose to some of his favorite actors just to piss him off.
Del Toro likes it whenever he wears it, though.
Like he'll put Doug Jones in one of those just because, I think, in some movies.
Del Toro loves to torture Doug Jones. It kind of makes me vaguely uncomfortable.
So this is an interesting pairing. We have two business tycoons who pretty much hate each other, and now they're teaming up. It's great, except for one secretly destroying the other.
Yeah, once Fisher woke up, he blew his fucking brains out later that night. I'll make something of my own, father! You like me now, father! And just pulled the trigger.
singularity and...
I wish we knew more about his characters, just because now I just have to imagine what he's often doing as his own empire, like he's making his own puppets or something stupid.
He gets really into dog combs.
God, can you imagine Cillian Murphy trying to become a puppet tycoon? The most terrifying thing in the world.
He has his own Build-A-Bear, just stuffing and removing the guts from bears.
I love action hero Levitt.
I just think he could have been the Sandman.
Oh, way to bring the
Isn't-
commentary down, man.
Isn't he technically the Sandman in this, though? Lord of Dreams?
Sandman, Morphe isn't much of a punch thrower.
What kind
Not
of
just John Peters.
Zing!
Wow.
So this movie is just a smorgasbord of actors who were in everything for like 2 years. Even Yusuf.
It's true. DiCaprio still does like one big prestige picture a year, although we'll see how that changes now that he finally has his Oscar.
He
But
just
Gordon-
stops acting.
Justin Gordon-Levitt's moved on to, I think he wants to do like probably smaller, more art-centered pictures, or maybe...
It's weird how Don John was the movie that just broke him.
That was his.
I don't know where Ellen
That's
Page
what I mean.
is
It's like-
anymore.
It's like, I did Don John. I can now
I
retire.
can leave. Now I just have that show on the Sundance Channel, or the fuck it's on.
Tom Hardy's still around. He's in a little bit of everything. It's actually fascinating watching Tom Hardy, because one day he'll be like, oh, I guess he's going to be in a big action movie. That's cool. And the next day he'll be, he's going to be in an Oscar picture where he talks about pelts a lot and pretty much mumbles everything else.
Tom Hardy is busy being professionally Tom Hardy.
I'm still
He really
convinced
does
that
whatever he
Legend-
feels he's interested in, which is great. It doesn't feel like he's ever just doing a movie to pay bills.
I'm still convinced that Legend is just an elaborate Tom Hardy joke.
Pretty much is.
Pay me twice. Is that how that works? If you're in a movie as a twin and you technically have to do twice the acting with two roles, do you get paid as two people? There's got to be some sort of, like, SAG guideline for that.
Oh my god, that's the secret of every Eddie Murphy movie. It's just a scam. In that instance,
Oh my God.
instance, do you just have one big check for Eddie Murphy, or do you have to make out individual checks for Eddie Murphy, Eddie Murphy, Eddie Murphy, and Eddie Murphy?
To each one of his personalities. Oh my god, this explains why Jim Carrey did Me, Myself, and Irene.
Okay, now, by this logic, do you give Brad Pitt a check for Fight Club, or do you make both checks out to Edward Norton?
Now, what a mind fuck that would be for when Pitt's expecting his paycheck. No, we just paid Norton twice.
What? No,
Damn,
no!
Fincher is such a master. He really believes it.
What? Brad, why would we invite you to the premiere? You weren't in the movie.
Oh,
No, I filmed scenes. What the fuck are you talking about?
I like
Security.
going by that logic, I love the idea that Bruce Willis got nothing for The Sixth Sense.
Just Nolan walked up to him. You're dead, man. Oh god, bringing it back to Nolan. Can you imagine how pissed off Christian Bale was when all of his checks were addressed to Batman?
Hollywood's a weird place.
I like how this exact moment happens in the Walking Dead pilot.
If only then Leo learned how to stick fight.
Sato,
We don't know what happened with him in the dream world.
That is true.
I would like to talk for just a second about Mal, who we've kind of talked around for the commentary. Something that was kind of lost on me whenever I first saw the movie that I've gained an appreciation for in the years since is the idea that she's a walking manifestation of the noir femme fatale archetype, which I think is very clever on Nolan's part, because traditionally in noir, the femme fatale is never the character who gets to be three-dimensional. She's always an idea, she's a shape, she's a figure. And in Inception, that's literally what Mal is. She's the idea of Mal. She exists only to be a seductress / assassin. She's just a walking archetype.
And beyond that, I mean, she is solely a projection of Cobb, so everything she is really is a reflection of him.
Exactly.
So apparently he just fucking loves 1930s noir films. He's like a junkie.
That's why I befriended Arthur.
That's one thing that I've always felt does lend credence to the whole movie as a dream thing. It's just the idea that everyone is this old movie version of that archetype. Like Arthur is just like a James Cagney character come to life. Meanwhile, Eames is just like Betty Davis or something.
I want an old-timey version of this where Fred Astaire is beating people up in zero-gravity hallways.
I think somebody's actually made that before.
I think so, actually.
Really?
I vaguely remember something like that, yeah.
Well, I apologize for ripping you off, Internet.
Someone's at least made a poster for old-timey Inception that has, like, Humphrey Bogart or something in it.
I just love how clever that joke was.
Quick, more exposition, go!
I like how the movie is having the same problem we have. Quick, fill time.
I love how the dream machine in no way connects to your brain. It really doesn't make any sense.
No, it just pumps out chemicals.
Yeah, it's something I find interesting. It has the same conceit that Paprika had, which is just, there's some science shit that lets you go into dreams. Moving on.
Which I love. Can more movies do that? I love how Nolan's the one who does that, too. One you
Also,
least expect.
I like how that's just the sci-fi version of magic.
That's going to be James's catchphrase for the next 50 episodes.
Write that down,
like,
Cody.
It's on the list. I'm honestly going to have to go back and make this list. Don't make me do it.
Well, no, don't worry. You'll get to re-listen to this, so we'll get a second chance.
When Listopia comes around, this will be in there. I really feel like if you... I missed my chance with all the crumbling buildings. If you were going to make a mashup between Inside Out and Inception, that's where you do it. This is like the area where, spoilers, Bing Bong goes to die. He's just a bunch of crumbling skyscrapers slowly fading from existence in memory.
I feel like you could mash up a lot of Pixar movies with Inception.
I'm just imagining how depressing they can make up with this idea. It was pretty sad before, but just imagine if the whole floating away in balloon things was just the old man having a stroke.
No.
Layers deep in his dreams.
Up is reality. The first level of the dream is Toy Story. And then from there you get progressively more out there until finally you reach, I would say the Invincibles, or the Incredibles.
Incredibles, yeah.
Wall-E seems like Limbo.
Yeah, Wall-E is Limbo.
Seems like you'd be right at home in this terrain.
Okay, so now we're getting a new Pixar theory going here.
My God, BuzzFeed will be thrilled.
I fully endorse this, though.
Hey, look, it's City from Equilibrium.
Instead of Woody telling Buzz he's just a toy, he's just screaming at him, "You are just a dream!"
I think
they have an existential crisis for months. Won't these kids turn around, goddammit?
They don't have faces anymore. He burned them off before he left. No one can see you again.
I have to say, these are the most boring kids I've ever seen. They just squat.
What, you've never squatted, James?
He's too good to squat.
Well, there's a time and a place, Mike. I don't recreationally squat.
You should try it. It's fun. I was doing it last night in the woods. Awesome.
It's way better for your rectum, too.
You're also wearing your Misfits hoodie there.
Oh, I was squatting in the woods wearing that. I lived in a house that had bad plumbing, alright? Sometimes I had to go into the woods.
So was the bridge area they were just kind of walking through, was that supposed to be... Damn it, we have to have some content related to the film. Was that supposed to be a callback to the bridge area they made earlier in the film that Cobb mentioned he had seen previously? Okay.
The same basic area.
Callbacks. Ah.
I know why they all had to be water houses. Fucking Cobb and Maul were weird.
A lot of water. You'd think he'd be more of a boat guy instead of a house guy.
You think they'd be a little more creative and have spaceships and shit?
Right? Like, oh, we
Architects
built
are
this from
boring.
memory. Well, why'd you build it from memory? You literally could do anything you wanted.
Mine would just be one gigantic strip club.
Honestly, if you could make your own house, mine would have a trampoline floor. Mine would have sub basements. Mine would have a lot of neat shit. They were not trying.
Sub basements? What the hell is the fun in that?
You keep going lower and lower, and that's where you hide the cooler shit. It's like in every movie where they do the pullback through like 19 doors to get to the neat shit.
See, this is where I would throw you off, Cody. I would go for trampoline ceiling.
Interesting, but I kind of have an idea, like you open a door on the 3rd floor, and it's just 3 floors down to a giant trampoline pit.
That sounds like it would kill you.
No, I mean, if you hollow out the floor underneath so you don't have, like, concrete underneath the trampoline.
You ever used a trampoline, Cody?
Yeah.
How soft are the trampolines you're using?
What is yours made out of, like, spikes or something?
Well, it's definitely not. I mean, you go onto a trampoline, it's fairly solid.
No, you can't. This.
I'm hand-waving my way out of this one. I don't believe you.
Oh, those poor burglars.
Home Alone 4 got graphic.
So this scene I'm fascinated by with the whole labyrinth idea of how Cobb's mind works is one of the ways Cobb gets out of his own labyrinth is he decides, I'm just not going to be in a labyrinth anymore. Which that's a way to do it. I wish Theseus pulled that off instead of brutally murdering a minotaur for no goddamn reason.
Also, interestingly enough, you could say that he decides that while in the middle of his labyrinth.
Exactly. Talking to Marion Cotillard as the Minotaur.
Also himself.
I'll never get tired of not saying that.
I will say, though, we should not compare Dom Cobb to Theseus, because Theseus is way more
Theseus
evil.
is a psychopath. He's a piece of shit. We will not talk about that.
Seriously, look up the Greek myth of Theseus. He's just the Punisher.
He's the Punisher
without the morality.
He's the Punisher if, instead of, like, chopping him up to bits and, like, making him into Frankencastle, Dakin just cut off his ass. And then he had Bronze One installed.
That's canon. That is Greek canon. Children were told that growing up.
And if you want to hear more about this, Hercules vs. the Podcast at blogspot.com.
Episode 2, Labor 2.
So...
That's the cross-promotion theme now.
This is the eternal question. If you met a clone of yourself, would you fight or fuck it? And in this sense, Cobb is seeing a lady version of his own personal thoughts based on his wife. So, I mean, it's not a complete person.
Projection. I'm sorry.
He's into it, but he has also killed her once.
Exactly.
I think he would go for a combination.
Like just strangling her while having sex with her?
Exactly. I think that's what he would do, which opens up a whole other can of worms for what's psychologically going on here.
No. What he would do is more like a Mr. and Mrs. Smith type of scenario where it would become more extravagant.
Okay, I never get the whole would you fuck or kill scenario, because I don't understand why that's binary.
You go to Scott Pilgrim like you meet up, have a good time, get breakfast the next day?
Yeah, I think if those are your two options, you're approaching this situation not with a full plate of scrambled eggs.
I would kill mine.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't want
100% agree.
And then myself, just to make sure it never happens again.
For the good of mankind.
I mean, would you guys want two mics walking around?
No, I would actually come in and kill the clone of you if need be.
Though I could do my own podcast with myself.
No. Here's what, Mike, I want you to clone yourself. Here's why. I have a lot of aggression I need to work out, and I can't think of a face that I want to pound in more than yours, but I don't actually want to hurt you, because you're a stand-up guy. So
I have
let's
a
not go
suggestion.
crazy now. Let's not
You become rival magicians. and let it play out.
Look, I'm just trying to.
They become rival magicians, and that way MB can get his clone wish out of the way. Mike, I guess you can get your wish of chopping your fingers off out of the way? I don't know.
Oh, and then James, while being hung, can say abracadabra.
And then Cody, you can walk out of a mist of lightning.
What I like is that for the better part of a decade, Mike and MB have had the running joke of MB pulling out a coin and saying, "Are you watching closely?" And the two of them become the bitterest of rivals.
It's true.
Going back to the idea of being an unreliable narrator, we see the scene kind of played out a couple of times, but in certain versions, Cobb is old as shit.
Yeah.
But it's not always presented that way, so you're never really... It's like he's withholding information, or maybe it's just the way he portrays it or sees it, as compared to maybe the reality actually presented in the film where he's old at this point.
I guess could have just made a gun and shot each other, but... Yeah.
They could have just made the building they were in topple, but whatever.
Drown. That's actually not too bad.
No, you didn't listen to Christopher Nolan and The Prestige. It was agony. See, Nolan has made movies to accommodate for all of your crazy fan theories.
Alright, so earlier in the movie you mentioned the staging for this doesn't make a shit ton of sense. What are we seeing that's off about them on the building where she jumps?
There's a couple of different weird things, like the way it's put together, the way the windows are across from each other doesn't really make any kind of true architecture sense in a lot of ways. There's a couple times, like, Cobb beckons her to come into his window.
So it's kind of like a Shining deal where, like, the layout of the hotel makes no sense, but it's probably done that way on purpose.
And when you consider the amount of mirror imagery throughout the film of kind of making something double, that's essentially what's going on there. Like, it's the same layout of the hotel room behind Mall, and everything's kind of double and they're across from each other, like there's a mirror between. There's some interesting stuff there that's going on.
Also, I forget the exact details of it, but I do recall somebody going into detail on how, structurally speaking, Mao would not be able to stand on that ledge in any type of building.
Yeah, there's not really that much of a ledge there.
And again, it's one of those things where it's like, is that there on purpose, or is that there because it's a movie?
Yeah.
And you can't prove or disprove either version.
Well, that's the thing. It's Nolan using the fact that it's a movie to fuck with you even more.
Again,
Right.
It goes back to the editing in the dreams as opposed to editing in real life. Yeah, the only information you're getting that, okay, this scene is a dream is because it's being edited with the same way that other dream sequences are edited. But nobody said Nolan had to do that. You can edit the movie however he damn well pleases. It plays very keenly on the trust we place in movies and the film language that we all kind of just unconsciously accept.
Just to tag up on something Cody said a couple minutes ago.
Lies, I didn't say anything.
You said stuff, man. Some
Prove
stuff.
it.
No.
Good.
But with the whole idea of you've seen the train scene a couple different ways. Sometimes they're old, sometimes they're young, blah, blah, blah. You see that with a couple of different things. And there's a line Cobb has when Ariadne first sees that he just has the elevator of memories thing going on. He just keeps reliving things. He says specifically that these are the memories he's trying to change. So even Cobb's recollections of things are just all kinds of wrong because he keeps messing with them. He goes into his head constantly and just messes with his own memories.
Somehow he's back. Roll with it.
Also, Cillian Murphy falling to his death was the saddest thing I've ever seen.
At the very least, whenever they do recover the body, they'll be able to recognize the cheekbones. Just like, can you imagine what Cillian Murphy's skull must look like?
Diamonds.
I'd like to have that crystal skull.
I was about to say, imagine he looks like that crystal skull.
But going back to the changing memories thing, as it plays once again into the idea of creating your own subjective reality, which is Cobb moving his own memories of what reality is to something fake, and then accepting the fake version of it over the real version, overwriting, you could say, the reality of his memories.
Because people deserve more than the truth.
If I can jump back to Inside Out, I mean, one of the ideas in that movie was... No, I have a legitimate point. One of the ideas in that movie is that memories can more or less be changed on emotional state. So you can temper them one way or the other. And, I mean, that's, I think, something that's happening right here, where they're taking one of the sad memories from Fisher's past and trying to repaint it in more of a bittersweet way, which completely changes his outlook on life and essentially sets his entire future on a different path. Which arguably is a good or bad thing. I mean, going by Nolan's own ideas, a good thing built upon a foundation of lies is a bad thing. But
I don't think Nolan knows what he thinks about that, to be honest. I think that's kind of an ongoing conversation with himself.
But it's also, partial re-examination of the self here, so it's, we all do this reconstruction over time, reassessment of memories and ideas, and we kind of build our own past mythologies. So is it wrong if someone tricks you into doing it to yourself? Morally, it's so ambiguous. I don't really know how to answer on this, if this is really a good or bad thing.
No, I think the presence of an outside force doing this, even if it is benevolent, is kind of sinister in a way, but the thing I kind of like about the resolution of this is that in the midst of all of this sci-fi bullshit, you do have something that is very real, because, that is kind of what you have to do in order to overcome a lot of the bullshit that you have to face in your life. You just have to revisit it and kind of put it in a context where it doesn't destroy you. Like, a lot of life is just putting the crappy stuff in its place and just kind of choosing to interpret the things that happen to you in a way that is constructive. I mean, that's what pretty much any good therapist would tell you.
I mean, basically, what you have to do is you have to fill your thoughts with more positive things. That's why entertainment exists. So, re-examining or reinterpreting your thoughts in the way James is kind of explaining is something that it seems unhealthy in the outset, but at the same time is kind of how you function. You have to function.
I don't even think it's necessarily just filling your thoughts with happy things. It's just...
Well, filling your thoughts with more...
The difference between constructive and destructive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because sometimes, again, it doesn't always have to be happiness. Sometimes you can draw a tremendous amount of strength from sadness. Just
look at what this scene's illustrating.
Yeah, just letting the sad things be sad. And Instead of just seeing that as something that's destructive, seeing that as something that teaches.
See, we're back to Inside Out.
I know.
Ah, that movie's educational.
Oh, did you just want to do commentary for Inside Out?
A little bit. I don't
We
think
show
we
up
should
for an
be
Inside
allowed
Out commentary a week later. What the fuck is this bullshit? I thought we were doing it.
I was gonna say, I don't think I should be allowed to do a commentary for a G-rated film.
Yeah, that would be a hard thing to sell.
I just feel bad for any children dumb enough to listen to the show. Why are you still listening?
Kids are listening to this show. They need to learn what to do with life.
Not from us.
So Cillian Murphy and Tom Berenger having a moment. After escaping from a dream, or so they think. And one of them is secretly Tom Hardy.
This is a very strange movie when you put things that way.
I did appreciate Tom Hardy's little head nod.
Yusuf escaping.
Oh, action Yusuf. The little head nod Tom Hardy gives Cillian in the last scene when he's, finding the pinwheel.
I always like that head nod.
It wasn't just like, oh, job well done. It was like, yeah, he did it. Which is strange because they're basically building into having catharsis. It's like if your mom yells at you to eat your broccoli. Like, it's probably a good thing, but I don't think anyone needs to raise their voice.
What's fascinating is Ames could, stereotypically would be portrayed as pretty sleazy, but he actually cares about people's emotions a lot throughout the entire movie. He's the one who keeps pointing this stuff out and kind of herding the journey along for Fisher.
Well, he's the actor, so his chief tool is empathy.
Yeah. That for a second just looked like he was about to poke the barrel of that gun into Leo's ass.
Is that how the beach ended?
God, it did.
That old man Watanabe.
Oh, get to my face.
This is what happens when you let them fight.
They never stop.
Always a fight.
Impressive. He whips his cape.
Also, MB, every time you fall asleep, whenever we plan to do something, this is always what I imagine is happening. You're just lost in a dream with Cody. Just trying to convince him.
Why Cody?
Do I have oatmeal on my chin?
Yes. God, the oatmeal on his chin just disgusts me. Can people not have gooey food on their face ever, please? Thank you.
Oatmeal is always a mistake, even when it tastes good. It's just, that consistency.
There's one exception. And that's Marina Baccarin having Thanksgiving food on her face.
No, that still creeps me out. No, food and sex don't mix. I'm sorry. That should never be a thing. And it's me. I'm into some weird shit, so no.
Seinfeld made it seem like it had potential. George is really living it up.
Okay, that I'm all for.
He took it too far, though.
That's what the entire thing was about, Cody.
I like the idea of going through Seinfeld just to point out the folly of man.
Isn't that what that show's for?
And this is the point his hubris got to him.
It would be awesome if they woke up and the plane was in the middle of just going down.
Oh, God.
No, there was time enough at last.
The pilot is hooked up to the dream machine.
It'd be more awkward if they finish the job and it turns out there's still 3 hours of flight left and they all have to sit around and pretend nothing's happening.
They don't say that doesn't happen.
It always seems
they just announced that it'd be landing in 20 minutes.
It always seems like the hot towels are for masturbation, right?
No, what planes are you on? How bad is your coach section?
I've just never understood that. Just why hot towels? Also, look at Joe. Look at Joe Segura lower there. Yeah.
Let it be in things.
Cobb's expression.
Huh?
He can't be in things until we forget about the wall.
Sato's expression just fucking destroys me. What
You
the fuck is going
18
on?
times.
Did we touch?
His
Let them fight?
Can someone edit that in when he puts the phone to his... Let them fight.
Like he was incepted.
He was incepted to trust Godzilla.
And then cut to the airport scene in Godzilla, where Godzilla shows up for the first time.
So Legendary's announced they're making a King Kong versus Godzilla film for like 2020. God, I hope he gets to say his line again. Like they bring him back just for the purpose. That's not even fair. He's like 20 feet tall. He's 400. No, the logistics don't make sense.
So he's a sad ape. Just wanted to make love to that tiny woman. Just wanted to make love to Jessica Lange. Except head nod.
Now, as we're getting closer to the ending, I want to finally give my thoughts on what I feel about the note this movie ends on and kind of my feelings as a whole. If you guys would indulge me.
No.
All right.
Ahem. Now, if you folks at home listen to Pulp Nightmare, Cody,
You should.
Cross promotion.
you know that Mike is something of an expert on strange phenomena in the natural world, which is the nicest thing I have ever said about him.
It's true.
And ever will say. Now, a few months back, he introduced me to the mystery of the Oak Island Money Pit. And it's something that's kind of haunted my imagination since then. If you've never read about it or seen the History Channel show, a very abridged version is that there's a giant man-made sinkhole on an island in Nova Scotia, which a lot of people believe contains lost pirate treasure at the bottom. So you can see the appeal already. But the twist is, the pit is designed so that whenever you dig down to a certain level, the whole thing floods out, erasing all the work and all the just time and money you've spent on it, earning it the title, The Money Pit. I know, it's hilarious, isn't it?
That's the actual name, the Money Pit.
The Oak Island Money Pit. Now, there are a lot of theories as to what the pit is and why it was built, but the most cynical one, which, coincidence or not, is the one that captured my imagination the most, is that there's nothing down there. The Money Pit has no secrets, it's just a giant flood machine. And for over 100 years, it's been doing exactly what it was built to do. Trolling people with a mystery designed specifically to be unsolvable. Now, with that in mind, let's look at the last scene of Inception. And people have analyzed every detail of this scene ad nauseum. They've had physicists calculate the exact gravitational pull the Earth would impose on the top at that specific area of the globe. Because the movie just spent nearly 2.5 hours establishing that that goddamn top is the most important thing in the universe. But if you look a little closer at the movie as a whole, you'll see that virtually every yardstick you've been trained to use is actually invalid. Especially Cobb's totem, like we talked about earlier. Every single clue in the movie is misdirection, and every person in this movie, from Dom Cobb to Christopher Nolan himself, has been established as being so unreliable that every theory you could build just washes away like a sandcastle. Or like pirate treasure at the bottom of a pit. In a film about getting lost and endlessly telescoping dreams, Inception traps the viewer in endlessly telescoping ambiguity, which there's no way out of because the film is a puzzle that was never meant to be solved. And as Nolan himself pointed out, the most important thing about that final shot is that Cobb is walking away from the top, looking at his children instead. He doesn't give a damn if it's real or not. He's through trying to sort it all out. He's learned to embrace the mystery and just get on with his life. And even an image that's even more powerful if you buy into the idea that it's all a metaphor for filmmaking. Cobb, along with the audience, can either waste his life trying to understand what this constructed world means, or he can just focus on how it makes him feel. I think that's kind of the message that Nolan was trying to impart on what I think is kind of an increasingly conspiracy-crazed, detail-obsessed film-going generation. He gave them a sinkhole with pirate treasure at the bottom and dared them to either dig or walk away. And that's James's 2 cents.
And credits.
That's the exact reason that I love Inception and find that it endures so much, is that, yeah, you can, I mean, we've been doing that this entire time, so you can poke at and get all film analysis on it and see this and connect things together and try to figure this point out, and that's all fun and great and insightful and fascinating all in its own right, but it pretty much poses kind of an interesting idea about subjective reality, and it doesn't matter. Like, what was just experienced, you as an audience and Cobb as a character still experienced. So whether it's real or whether it's fake just doesn't matter.
And that's actually what prompts another type of response to this movie, is that you can take it at face value and it still works. You don't really have to go into that analytical mindset and really kind of, dig deep and find the deeper meanings. You can if you want to, but that's your choice. Like, the idea of what the movie represents is that it's kind of a choose your own adventure kind of movie, where it gives you everything on the plate, but it leaves it open it up to where you can actually look at it and just go, okay, this is how I'm going to interpret this movie, or this is just what I'm going to take from it, or I'm just going to watch it as is and just be entertained by it on the base level. It leaves you the room, which I think a lot of movies make the mistake of not doing, which is they really hammer in the point, okay, this is what this movie was trying to say. No ifs, ands, or buts. You don't get a choice in the matter, blah, 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 blah. This movie is, to me, an exercise of basically open-ended storytelling, if that makes any sense.
I'd say the best metaphor you could pose is the state your case that Ariadne and Arthur walk on towards the beginning of the movie, the closed loop. Listen, what we're saying is, good movie, not as good as The King's Speech.
No, we don't bring that up.
I was waiting for the Inception.
No, you don't understand.
Yeah.
The rich royal man couldn't speak correctly, and then he learned to speak correctly, and that won World War II.
Yep.
He also said tits a bunch of times, which is really funny.
And also Helena Barton Carter was there, so...
Jeffrey Rush. I swear to God, I'm one of the few people in the world who really enjoys The King's Speech. Someday you'll see things my way.
And just to get off the King's Speech for a second, I love how, as the credits end, the song starts to play. Edith Piaf song starts to play. It was a nice touch on Ellen's part.
Yeah, I think pretty much everybody knows this part now, but how fucked up is it that... God, blanking on the actress's name.
Who?
Marion
Cotillard.
Marion Cotillard.
Oh, yeah. Can't believe I fucking forgot this at the end of the commentary.
Rough going. You almost made it to the finish line.
How fucked up is it that Cotillard played Edith Piaf in a movie that came out like 2 years before this one?
And that was what won her Oscar, actually.
And that's Inception right there.
Like, did Nolan do that on purpose? It has to keep going forever.
I feel like you're going to bring this factoid up next year when we do the commentary, and I'm going to be like, she was? And then you're going to tell me all the same facts again.
I'm hoping that, like, 20 years from now, Nolan makes a movie about the time he made Inception.
I hope so.
That would be fascinating. Hopefully he's got some horrible strife going on in his life right then, so it makes more drama.
I mean,
Maybe we can add a subplot about him, like, killing his wife or something.
Well, there's that. But it would be awesome if this was his own, like, Nightmare on Elm Street, where he made a new nightmare of the Inception of Inception.
That would be fascinating.
They have to go into Nolan's head.
We have to go deeper, and it's just layers and layers of vests.
You have to wear every single one.
No.
Why do I just have this mental image in my head of Joseph Gordon-Levitt having a dramatic fight scene with an anthropomorphic vest?
Just strangles him.
I kind of like that idea. But on that note, I just want to add one final thought about Inception and why it's one of my favorite movies, which is there's a lot of movies that are about the power of storytelling. And the movie where there is a anti-gravity hallway fight between the dude who once played Cobra Commander and a couple stuntmen is the greatest movie about the power of storytelling. About the power of storytelling on one's psyche, on one's soul, and what it can do for you.
And it does that while managing to be a powerful story in of itself.
Wong.
I like the hallway fight. It was fun.
I hate this fucking podcast.
Yes, you do.
Play it again.
You get more out of life when you go out to a movie. Please remember to replace the speaker on the post when you leave the theater.
We're all going to have to download that app and remember it for next year, so when we do the commentary, we're just constantly blaming each other.
No, then when to just abuse this?
Well, that's the idea. And then the next year, we'll have to make a note like, no, guys, we did too much last time. It'll just be course correction year after year. Eventually, we'll hit a perfect balance of bombs.
And I'm shutting my recorder off.
This is Box Office Pulp Guy, and this has been a Pulp Podcast production. Now please, 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 put a gun in my mouth and pull the trigger and say goodnight.
And now, on with the show.
There are a lot of issues that plague the
Greetings and salutations, kiddos. It's me, your old goblin in crime, Roderick Kingsley, here with a special message for you, my adoring public. You may have noticed lately in my many appearances that I've had a bit of a spring in my pointy-booted step. No, boys and girls, the secret to my success is no wonder drug or miracle diet, but an elixir of the spirit. And, like a Halloween-themed Jehovah's Witness, I'm here to spread the good news like a bombardment of pumpkin bombs. The good news of graphic novelism. But, Uncle Hobgoblin, you ask, what is a graphic novelism? Don't interrupt me, you little shit! But yes, the tenets of graphic novelism are quite simple. A love for the comic book form in all of its forms. A rejection of the complacency that keeps it from reaching further heights. And, most importantly, a refusal to fall into the dark pool of negativity that has strangled the life out of this culture for too long. Since becoming a devout graphic novelist, I've rebuilt my goblin game from the ground up, soaring high above my fears and insecurities, as though they were the skyline of New York City. And all you have to do to walk this path is look deep within yourself and send your credit card number care of Ronnie the OG Hobby at gobmail.com. Or if you want to be a total Norman about it, just listen to the Graphic Novelism Podcast, where Alex Cook, James Lewis, and Mike Napier preach their love for the medium and warn against those that may do it harm. Remember, ladies and gents, if you want to be the hobgoblin of whatever it is that you do, listen to Graphic Novelism. Subscribe to it on iTunes and The Stitcher. Leave a rating and a comment. Give Hobgoblin all of your money. And for God's sake, kill Spider-Man!
on another episode.
That was just a little taste of graphic novelism.